Chapter 3398 was probably due to guilt. Biming nodded his head in satisfaction. Very good. Although your personality is a little naughty, at least you can listen to my opinions. It's not bad. Yun Chujio silently chanted a few times in her heart before saying, I will always listen to your words in the future, Prince Charming. Alright, Prince Charming, when did you break the ice seal? What are your plans next? Less than 10 days ago. I have my own plans for the future. I will accompany you for a few days before leaving, Biming said calmly. Yun Chujio saw that Biming had returned to his ice-sculpted face, so she did not continue to question him. However, this guy counted with his fingers. This pretty boy probably came to find her as soon as he broke the ice seal, so he had a conscience. At this moment, Yun Chujio's stomach growled. This guy just remembered that she had not eaten anything for a day. Biming glanced at her. Hungry? Yun Chujio nodded happily. Even though the gigolo had lost his 7 emotions and 6 desires, he still cared about her. If he let her eat later, she would think of a way to let him feed her. Just as he was thinking happily, he saw Biming take out a porcelain bottle, poured out a fasting pill from it and handed it to her. Eat it. Yun Chujio, eat your head. You actually want me to eat fasting pills? Yun Chujio looked at the fasting pill in Biming's hand with disdain. I don't want to eat this thing. I want to eat warm food. Biming was slightly displeased. How can a cultivator be greedy for food? Besides, eating those dishes will waste a lot of time. If you have that time, can you use it to cultivate? Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Yun Chujio looked at Biming with a blank face. Biming thought that she had been convinced by him, so he raised his hand and stuffed the fasting pill into Yun Chujio's mouth. Yun Chujio reacted and spat out the fasting pill. I don't care. I want to eat warm food. If you insist on me eating this fasting pill, I'd rather starve. Biming looked at the fasting pill on the ground and then at the indignant Yun Chujio. A hint of displeasure flashed across his eyes. As you wish. It's getting late, you should rest. After Biming finished speaking, he turned around and left the room. Yun Chujio was so angry that she gritted her teeth and cursed silently. Then she hurriedly took out the food and started eating. Damn it, no matter how angry she was, she could not treat her stomach badly. She was the one who was starving and uncomfortable. Biming pushed open the room next door. He used the cleaning spell to clean up the room before lying on the bed. He originally did not want to care about Hei Shinjio next door, but after thinking about it, he released his spiritual sense to check. He thought that the little girl would be so angry that she would cry again. He did not expect that the little girl's mouth was full of oil. She was eating a chicken drumstick in her hand. Biming. He shook his head. No wonder his spiritual power was so low and he was so greedy for food. He had to find a way to correct it. Otherwise, he would leave Towering Sky Continent soon. Her safety was a problem. Biming felt that his emotions had been calm ever since he broke the ice seal. But today he felt that his emotions were constantly fluctuating along with that little girl. He could not help but frown. It must be because he felt guilty toward her. That was why it was like this. Yes, it must be like this. As the night deepened, Biming felt slightly sleepy. While he was half asleep, he sensed the sound of someone moving in the next room. Chapter 3399 Appreciating Beauty, right? Biming frowned slightly. Could it be that she had gotten up to drink water? Just as Biming was about to use his spiritual sense to check, he realized that the footsteps were approaching his room. Then he realized that his room door had been carefully pushed open. Yun Chujio's little head looked at the door. When she saw that Biming was lying flat on the bed and did not make any movements, she quietly entered the room and closed the door. This guy tiptoed to the side of Biming's bed. Just as he was about to climb up, he saw Biming open his eyes and looked at her like a cold star. What are you doing? This guy's mind went blank for a moment. He was discovered climbing into a man's bed in the middle of the night. Wasn't it awkward? However, this guy's skin was unusually thick. He said pitifully, the door of my room was smashed by you, so I was a little scared and wanted to sleep with you. Biming was slightly stunned. Only then did he remember that he had indeed smashed the door of the room next door. He sat up and got off the bed. In that case, you can sleep here. This venerable self will sleep next door. Prince Charming, can you stay with me? I haven't been able to sleep well these few days because I'm always worried that the people of the Jingmu Kingdom will catch up with me. I only feel safer with you by my side. Yun Chujio said pitifully. Di Biming originally wanted to refuse, but when he saw Yun Chujio's watery eyes he said in the end, in that case you can sleep. I'll sit on the chair and watch you sleep. Yun Chujio immediately smiled brightly and nodded vigorously, my Prince Charming, I knew you were the best to me. Di Biming was a little absent-minded. Was this treating her well? Since she thought it was good he would just watch her fall asleep for the next few days. Yun Chujio climbed onto the bed with both hands and feet. She first laid down at the place where Di Biming had laid down for a while, and then she climbed onto the bed and lay on her side. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks, Di Biming asked in confusion, why are you doing this? Yun Chujio's little face was flushed red. She used her claws to point at the place where Di Biming had laid down. Because there is your aura here, my Prince Charming. I just laid down for a while and my body was stained with your aura. I feel very happy and at ease. Di Biming suddenly had an indescribable feeling in his heart. It was as if there was some sour and sweet feeling. He was very repulsed by this kind of unfamiliar emotion. His face was covered with a layer of frost. It's getting late. Hurry up and sleep. Yun Chujio saw Di Biming's sudden change in expression and could not help but curse in her heart. Crazy. He turned hostile just like that. Only I can tolerate this kind of crazy. This guy had slept for the whole afternoon. How could he sleep now? Therefore he looked at Di Biming who was sitting on the chair without blinking. The more he looked, the more interesting he became. Especially that stuffy and flirtatious look that made people feel itchy. Di Biming could not ignore the hot and stinging look that almost ate him up. He opened his eyes and said, what are you looking at with such a shifty look? If you don't want to sleep, go back to your own room. Sneaky eyes. He Xinju almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He was clearly looking at her with his bright eyes. All right. Prince Charming, I'm looking at you. I think you're getting more and more handsome. There's nothing wrong with appreciating beauty, right? Yun Chujio said pitifully. Di Biming looked at her indifferently. There's nothing wrong with appreciating beauty, but how can you explain it when you're drooling while looking at it? Chapter 3400. The original body had lost his memory. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and said seriously, this is because I didn't eat dinner tonight, so I couldn't help but drool when I saw the delicious food. This is understandable. Di Biming, didn't eat dinner? Could it be that what he saw with his spiritual sense was just an illusion? How could a person who had eaten half a roast chicken still say that he didn't eat dinner? I'll give you two choices. One, close your eyes and sleep. The other, you'll go to another room. You can sleep here by yourself. Di Biming said coldly. Yun Chujio pursed her lips. I'm going to sleep now. You must not leave me alone. I'm timid and I'm afraid. Di Biming looked at her meaningfully. He did not say anything. He turned around and took out a book to read. Yun Chujio cursed in her heart. Bah! Who cares about looking at you? If you don't want to read, then don't read. Yun Chujio turned over, closed her eyes and began to force herself to sleep. Unfortunately, she slept too much during the day. Moreover, this fellow had been scheming about little Chujio in his heart, so he could not fall asleep no matter what. This fellow rolled his eyes and began to groan. It's so cold. I'm so cold. As he spoke, he shrunk his whole body into the quilt and kept shivering. Di Biming frowned slightly and did not move. However, Yun Chujio's moaning gradually turned into a low sob. He still got up and went to the bedside. After hesitating for a while, he hugged Yun Chujio and the quilt in his arms and used his spiritual power to help her warm up. Yun Chujio poked her head out from under the blanket and said with a stubborn expression, I don't need you to care about me. Just let me fend for myself. Di Biming glanced at her and did not say anything. He did not want to care about her, but for some reason he could not turn a blind eye to her crying. SOB, return my gigolo to me. My gigolo will not be angry at me. My gigolo is obedient to me. My gigolo tries his best to please me. My gigolo listens to everything I say. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks, Di Biming said plainly. Little Jiu, you have to understand one thing. I don't have 7 emotions and 6 desires, but I don't have amnesia. Yun Chujio, this guy blinked his eyes guiltily. No matter what, my gigolo will hug me to sleep and sing me a lullaby. Do you know it? No. Di Biming looked through the memories and felt that he was an idiot. He actually sang her a lullaby? Yun Chujio pursed her lips and did not say anything else. However, she thought to herself, pretty boy, just you wait. the cause that you planted and the bitter fruit that you bear, you will swallow it even if you cry in the future. She did not know whether it was because it was late at night or because she was carried by D-Biming, but this fellow finally yawned a few times and fell into a deep sleep. D-Biming saw that she was asleep and placed her on the side of the bed. Just as he was about to leave, he noticed that Yun Chujia's hand was tightly holding onto his clothes. He frowned and cut off the piece of cloth, then turned around and got off the bed. D-Biming placed a futon on the ground and began to meditate. I don't want you to leave. Prince Charming, you can't die. D-Biming opened his eyes and looked at the bed. He saw that the little girl had pushed the blanket away. Her hands were waving unconsciously, and tears were flowing down from the corners of her eyes. However, even so, she was still holding the piece of cloth tightly. D-Biming felt a pain in his heart. He almost subconsciously walked to the side of the bed and held Yun Chujia's hand. It's okay, I'm here. Chapter 3401. The Jingmu Kingdom attacked again. Yun Chujia was like a drowning person who had found a floating board. She held D-Biming's arm in her arms. There were tears in the corners of her eyes, but her lips curled up into a curve. D-Biming's bent posture was really uncomfortable. He gritted his teeth and could only lie on the outside of the bed. In her sleep, Yun Chujia seemed to feel a heat source. She let go of D-Biming's arm and then nestled into D-Biming's arms. D-Biming's body stiffened. He really did not like to be so close to others. However, he could not bear to push Yun Chujia away. He lowered his head and saw that Yun Chujia was sleeping soundly. It was as if the nightmare from before had passed. He hugged her tightly. If he moved slightly, she would move along with him. She would even moan. D-Biming had no choice but to let her hug him. He thought that he would be so uncomfortable that he would open his eyes until daybreak. He did not expect that he would also slowly fall asleep. The next morning, Yun Chujia opened her eyes and found herself in D-Biming's embrace. She could not help but be stunned. Wasn't this pretty boy supposed to have no desires? Why was he hugging her? Aren't you cold now? Why aren't you letting go of me? D-Biming's cold voice sounded above her head. Yun Chujia pouted in her heart. It was clearly him who was hugging her, all right. However, she still had to give him a way out. Hence, she said weakly, "Thank you for last night. My body is getting weaker and weaker. Please forgive me for offending you." Hearing Yun Chujia's polite words, D-Biming couldn't help but feel a little depressed, but he couldn't tell what the reason was. At this moment, the sound transmission talisman in Yun Chujia's storage ring rang. It was sent by Prime Minister Sima. Your Majesty, the Jingmu Kingdom's army is heading towards Puyang City. They should be preparing to attack the city again. Yun Chujia's heart tightened. She directly climbed over D-Biming's body, then got off the bed and put on her shoes. Prince Charming, the Jingmu Kingdom is attacking the city again. I have to go take a look. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Before D-Biming could react, this guy had already rushed out. D-Biming recalled the touch just now and was slightly stunned. After a moment he stood up and frowned slightly. Then he rushed towards the city wall. When Yun Chujia reached the city wall, the Jingwood Kingdom's army had already arrived at the city wall aggressively. The Crown Prince Jing Jiahong was killed. Emperor Mu Xian was furious. He gave Shang Liangxin and the others their lives. Either they killed Yun Chujia and her wild man or they destroyed their entire family. Shang Liangxin and the others had no choice. Although they knew that D-Biming was not to be trifled with, they had no choice but to force themselves to attack the city again. They lied to themselves and comforted themselves. Although that wild man was powerful, it was difficult for him to fight against 4 hands with 2 fists. They had tens of thousands of people, so why should they be afraid of him? The reason why the Crown Prince was killed by him was that the Crown Prince was not on guard. That wild man was nothing special. When Shang Liang saw that there was only Yun Chujia on the city wall and there was no sign of that wild man, he immediately became more confident. He reckoned that the wild man had already left. The heavens were really helping their Jingmu Kingdom. Yun Chujia, I advise you to surrender immediately. This way you and your subordinates' lives can still be saved. Otherwise, don't blame us for not being polite. Shang Liangxin said arrogantly. Yun Chujia curled her lips. Are you stupid? Don't you know that my fiancé is very powerful? Even your bullshit crown prince was killed by my fiancé. How dare you come here to court death? You guys are really stupid. Bah. Bitch. That wild man was just lucky. You dogs, men and women don't even think about living. Shang Liangsen's words came to an abrupt end, because there was an ice arrow stuck between his brows and he had actually died. Chapter 3402. You will always live in my heart. The army of the Jingmu kingdom was originally lacking in confidence. Now that Shang Liangxin had been killed, they were in a mess. It was only then that they saw the man standing beside the female emperor and looking at them coldly. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines. They did not dare to resist at all. The senior generals looked at each other. They did not believe that Emperor Mu Xian would kill them all. This man was unfathomable. They were no match for him. It was better to go back and make a long-term plan. Therefore, under the leadership of the senior generals, the army of the Jingmu kingdom disappeared without a trace. Prime Minister Sima was dumbfounded. Damn, this fiancé of His Majesty was really powerful. He actually scared off tens of thousands of the Jingmu kingdom's army the moment he showed up? Yun Chujio felt a little bitter and proud at the same time. Damn, when did I become so awesome? Just as he was thinking about it, he heard Di Baiming say coldly, "Follow me back." Although his voice was no different from usual, Yun Chujio could still hear some anger in it. This guy couldn't help but feel a little confused. What did I do to provoke him? However, this fellow had always been tactful. After giving a few words to Prime Minister Sima, he followed Di Baiming and left the city wall. Along the way, Di Baiming did not say anything. Yun Chujio could not figure out what this crazy person meant, so she did not say anything. The two of them walked silently into the city lord's mansion. After entering the house, Di Baiming sat on a chair. Yun Chujio was about to sit down when she heard Di Baiming say coldly, "Do you think I'm dead? Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site." Thanks. Yun Chujio was so shocked by his sudden words that she almost sat on the ground. She said weakly, "Prince Charming, where did you start? How can I think you're dead? You will always live in my heart." Di Baiming. Yun Chujio felt that something was wrong after she said that. She smiled embarrassedly, then she said, "Prince Charming, what did I do to offend you? Is it because I slept in your house, your bed and your man yesterday?" Di Baiming's frown deepened. What did he mean by sleeping with his man? If he wanted to sleep with her, he should be the one sleeping with her, okay? When Di Baiming thought of this, he could not help but be distracted and did not speak for a long time. When Yun Chujio saw that Di Baiming did not speak, her heart could not help but beat faster. Could it be that the gigolo had found out that she was pretending to be sick? She did not give herself away, did she? Originally, this mental illness was very serious when it flared up. Usually it was as if nothing had happened. He should not have noticed any flaws, right? Or was it because she pretended to ask for a hug yesterday? That shouldn't be the case. Chapter 3403. The unlucky Meng Yanshou. Di Baiming's expression froze. And then he said coldly, "Don't think about these things all day long. Since you're already alive and kicking, hurry up and start cultivating." Yun Chujio pursed her lips. Damn it, she hated it the most. "Prince Charming, I haven't eaten breakfast yet. I'll start cultivating after eating." Di Baiming took out a porcelain bottle containing fasting pills and poured out a fasting pill. Seeing the look of disdain on Yun Chujio's face, he had no choice but to put it in his mouth. Di Baiming gave her a look of self-care, then turned around and went to the room next door. Yun Chujio slowly began to eat breakfast. She estimated that there were still 5 or 6 days left before Emperor Nanxian and the others could take down the other 6 vassal states. When that time came, it would be time to start a war with the Jingmu kingdom. After taking down the Jingmu kingdom, even the other second-tier countries would not dare to provoke the 4-tier alliance so easily. She would be able to live in peace for a period of time. Although she knew that Di Baiming was very powerful now, Xue Wuji had once said that Di Baiming still had enemies to deal with. It was obvious that he could not stay by her side forever, so she had to rely on herself. After eating breakfast, Yun Chujio strolled out of the house and went straight to Di Baiming's room. Di Baiming continued to cultivate with his eyes closed, ignoring this guy. This guy walked around the house, then sat down cross-legged next to Di Baiming, closed his eyes and began to cultivate. Di Baiming tried his best to ignore Yun Chujio's influence on him, but no matter what, there was still a ripple in his heart. He frowned. How could this be? Di Baiming tried his best to calm his emotions before continuing to cultivate. Soon a day had passed. Hei Xinjiu stood up and stretched. Then she looked at Di Baiming, who was still meditating expressionlessly. She said with a smile, Idle, it's time for dinner. Don't eat the fasting pills today. I'll roast meat for you. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Di Biming didn't even open his eyes. He said indifferently, no need. You can eat it yourself. Yun Chujio did not say anything. He hopped out of the room. Very soon, Di Biming, who was meditating in the room, smelled the aroma of the roasted meat. Since the room he was in did not have a door, the aroma was exceptionally strong. Di Biming shook his head slightly. In his opinion, the roasted meat was no different from the fasting pills. Moreover, it took a lot of time and effort. He was really asking for trouble. Just as he was thinking about it, he heard Yun Chujio's smiling voice from the door. Xiao Hei, curly hair, the roasted meat today is not bad, right? Master, I haven't eaten the roasted meat that you personally cooked for a long time. The roasted meat is sizzling and oozing oil. It's really too fragrant. Xiao Heinio said with his green bean-like eyes. Meng Yanshou was chewing the roasted meat in its mouth and said vaguely, I feel that I'm really blissful now. There's meat to eat and there's a story to read. Even deities wouldn't change on days like this. Di Biming couldn't help but sneer in his heart. What kind of master would raise a spiritual pet? The spiritual pets that little Jiu raised were also foodies who didn't want to improve themselves. Yun Chujio gave Meng Yanshou a look and Meng Yanshou gritted his teeth with a bitter look. He said slyly, Little fairy, I read those storybooks. Once a woman becomes the female emperor or something, she will marry many male concubines. How many do you plan to marry? Meng Yanshou's heart was like a beeping dog. This little girl was really too mean. Why didn't she let that ugly bird ask such a question? Why did she have to let it ask? Although the fiend in the room no longer had 7 emotions and 6 desires, even a man wouldn't be able to tolerate his woman having several men, right? It already had a premonition that a storm was coming. Chapter 3404. Yun Chujio looked at Meng Yanshou approvingly and then said faintly, I haven't thought about this yet. People say that there are 3 palaces, 6 courtyards and 72 concubines. I can't be too little, right? Otherwise people will look down on me. As soon as Yun Chujio finished her words, Xiao Heinio and Meng Yanshou felt like they were going to be frozen into popsicles. However, their master, who was courting death, continued to say, there are many types of handsome men. If I marry one of each type, there should be at least dozens of them. Fortunately, I have money. Even if I marry more, I can still afford to raise them. Whoosh, whoosh. Xiao Heinio and Meng Yanshou were thrown out of the yard like kites with broken strings. The 2 poor kids who shared the same fate looked at each other. Damn it, it was not a good thing that they could speak human language. If not for the fact that they were the only ones who could speak human language, the black-hearted master would not have let them do such a wicked thing. The nightmare beast felt that it was even more miserable than the little black bird. The little black bird only said that the roast meat was delicious, but it said those words. That Jinx would deal with it sooner or later. It was simply hopeless. Their black-hearted master was currently in the middle of the storm. Fortunately, this fellow had always been thick-skinned. Even though he was being stared at by Di Biming, he still continued to eat the roast meat leisurely. Prince Charming, why are you out? Did you smell the aroma of the roast meat and want to eat it too? Di Biming stared at her gloomily and said coldly, 3 palaces, 6 courtyards and 72 concubines? Marry one of each type? How dare you? Yun Chujio raised her head and glanced at him. Prince Charming, don't you have no emotions now? Then you definitely won't have sex with me, right? Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks, but I still want to give birth to a monkey. If you don't want to have sex with me, then I'll find someone else to have sex with. Is there a problem with that? Don't worry, I'll reserve the position of queen for you. You're the most important thing in my heart. Di Biming took a deep breath and his expression became even uglier. He said gloomily, you have a Guai Chao in your dantian. How can you have an affair with someone else? Guai Chao can be removed sooner or later. I'll marry it first and keep it in the harem to prepare for it. I don't want to be caught off guard. Besides, even if I can't have sex with them, they can hug me and sleep with me when I'm afraid of the cold. Yun Chujio's face showed a yearning expression. The moment Di Biming thought of Yun Chujio being hugged by another man, the anger in his heart was like a rising flame, almost exploding him. If you dare to do that, I will. Yun Chujio threw the barbecued meat in her hand onto the ground, pointed at Di Biming and said, what will you do? Pretty boy, I have tolerated you for 2 days. Don't think that I will always accommodate you. Do you think that you are so great just because you don't have any emotions? You were born to be my person and you are my ghost even if you die. I can touch you if I want to and I can sleep with you if I want to. If you continue to act pretentious with me, I will divorce my husband and marry someone else. As Yun Chujio spoke, she stood on her tiptoes and forcefully hugged Di Baiming's neck. She bit his lips. This fellow really bit him until he tasted a trace of fresh blood. Only then did she plan to let Di Baiming go. Who would have thought that Di Baiming's initially stiff hands would suddenly hug her? The hot kiss was like a storm, instantly causing He Xinjiu to be kissed until the sky turned dark. After a long time, Di Baiming finally let go of Yun Chujio. There were still faint traces of blood on his lips, and He Xinjiu's lips were also slightly red and swollen. Moreover, it was obvious that she was a little stunned by the kiss. She changed her previous route of the Overlord flower and looked pitiful like a little white flower swaying in the wind and rain. Chapter 3405 gave him another slap after a long silence. Di Baiming shook the hand in his sleeve and said in a cold voice, I did this just now to tell you that even without the 7 emotions and 6 desires, I can still be a gentleman with you. If you dare to provoke another man, I will destroy his entire family. If you don't believe me, you can try. After Di Baiming finished speaking, he did not care about Yun Chujio's reaction and directly turned around and entered the house. Yun Chujio was stunned for a while. Then she touched her slightly red and swollen lips and cursed in her heart. What the fuck? Pretentious. This fellow recalled what Di Baiming said just now. His eyes were burning with high fighting spirit. Pretty boy, let's wait and see. At this moment, Di Baiming's heart was in a mess in the room. He calmed down and understood that Yun Chujio's words about marrying a concubine were meant to anger him. However, he still felt a sense of frustration. He could not describe what he felt in his heart. The moment he closed his eyes, the image of that passionate kiss appeared in his mind. Why did he feel a sense of satisfaction and joy when he did something that should have been something that he rejected? He remembered that Yun Chujio had bitten his lips like a violent lion, and some parts of his body had actually. Di Baiming gritted his teeth in frustration and took out Xue Wuji's voice transmission talisman. If you two can't kill Emperor Mu Xian within 5 days, then you don't have to live anymore. I don't raise trash. On the other side, when Xue Wuji received Di Baiming's voice transmission talisman, he felt as if his heart was going to explode. Wasn't this person expressionless? Why did he suddenly lose his temper? Damn it, he must have been taught a lesson by little sister Jiu. That was why he took it out on them. How shameless. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Di Baiming put away the voice transmission talisman. He thought that once Mu Xian died he would help her to calm down the situation and then he could leave. As long as he could not see her he would not feel guilty and would not be affected by her emotions. Then everything would return to normal. At this moment Xiao Hanio and Meng Yanshou sneaked back to the courtyard. Xiao Hanio's strong body was fine, but Meng Yanshou was in trouble. Its body was a level 1 wind blade rabbit. When it returned to Yun Chujio it was only left with one breath. Little fairy, I have given my all for you. If you have a conscience, change my shell this time. Meng Yanshou said as he took his last breath. Yun Chujio ignored him and took out a wind blade rabbit. Even though Meng Yanshou was unwilling, he didn't dare to say anything when he thought about the bad guy in the house. At this moment the night was getting darker. Yun Chujio didn't greet Di Baiming and went back to the house next door. Di Baiming thought that Yun Chujio would call him over, but Yun Chujio didn't call him at midnight. He didn't cry either. Di Baiming hesitated for a moment. He used his divine sense to scan the room next door. He saw Yun Chujio sitting in a bathtub. Her head was tilted to the side and she fainted. Di Baiming's heart tightened. He quickly ran over. His speed was so fast that he only left an afterimage. Di Baiming rushed into the room and hurriedly carried Yun Chujio out of the bathtub. Little Jiu, what's wrong? Are you having a heart attack again? Yun Chujio opened her eyes and looked at him in confusion. Then she looked at her naked body and slapped Di Baiming. Pervert. Chapter 3406 Despised people like you who did not mean what they said. Only then did Di Baiming realize that the person in his arms was not wearing anything. Her snow-white skin was like fine white jade. He suddenly threw Yun Chujio onto the bed and left the room in a panic. Di Baiming stood at the door with a blank mind. Yun Chujia's palm print was still on his face. He was stunned for a while like a wooden sculpture. Hei Xinjiu, who was in the room, was also very upset. She really did not do it on purpose this time. Damn it, no matter how thick-skinned she was, she could not do such a thing. She was in a bad mood, so when she returned to the room she took out her phone book to pass the time. After looking at it she realized that it was late at night. In addition, the smell of the barbecued meat made her smell like fireworks, so she got out the bathtub. She wanted to take a shower before going to bed. Who would have thought that she was so tired that she actually fell asleep while taking a shower? When this fellow thought of the situation just now, her face immediately turned red and she was extremely angry. She had also let down her guard because he was here. Moreover, Di Baiming's spiritual power was much higher than hers, so she did not notice that someone had come. Her body was wet and she could not just lie there. She could only get up and wipe her body, and then she began to change the bedding. Di Baiming heard the movement in the room and only then did he come back to his senses. He said coldly, "I mistakenly thought that you fainted, that's why I did it. You should rest." Yun Chujia's disdainful voice came from the room. "Bah. I don't like people like you who don't mean what you say. You obviously covet my beauty but you pretend to be serious. Who are you lying to?" Di Baiming opened his mouth but he did not know how to explain. He turned around and was about to leave when Yun Chujio opened the door from inside. She looked at him with a faint smile. "If you don't feel guilty then sleep with me. Otherwise, you're afraid that you won't be able to control yourself if you sleep with me." Di Baiming looked at Yun Chujia's fair little face and unconsciously glanced at her still dripping long hair. Something seemed to be slowly waking up in his body. He turned around stiffly. He said coldly, "I don't need to prove anything to you. Rest in peace." After saying that, Di Baiming turned around and walked into the room next door. However, his footsteps were slightly flustered. "Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site." Thanks. Yun Chujio pouted and closed the door with a bang. When Di Baiming returned to the room, the scene of kissing in the daytime flashed in his mind. It was the beautiful scene that he saw just now. It took him a long time to calm down. He thought for a while and thought that maybe he had just broken the seal, which was why his realm wasn't stable. That was why he was easily affected by external things. With that thought he finally calmed down. Lying on the bed, he closed his eyes and prepared to sleep. After a while he suddenly sat up. When he opened the door, that little rascal's hair was wet. He wouldn't just sleep like that, would she? If that was the case she might catch a cold. If she caught a cold it would trigger a mental illness. The more Di Baiming thought about it, the more he felt that the situation was a little serious. He immediately got out of the bed and walked quickly to Yun Chujia's house. He was about to raise his hand to push the door open but he stopped again. What happened? If he was worried that she would catch a cold, he could have used his spiritual sense to scan her. Why did he rush over here in such a hurry? He did not want to think too much. Just as he was about to use his spiritual sense to check the situation inside, he heard Yun Chujia's faint voice from inside the room. "The night is long and only the 5 of you are with me. You are much stronger than that pretty boy. Not only are you strong and powerful, but you are also absolutely loyal to me." Chapter 3407. How to secure the door. Di Baiming saw the 5 tall figures reflected on the window paper. When he thought of what Yun Chujio had just said, he was so angry that he almost exploded. So what she had said during the day was not a joke. She had already prepared everything. Was the one today the strong type? Di Baiming raised his hand and smashed the door into pieces. When he saw the situation inside the room he was stunned. There were 5 puppets made of 1,000-year-old black iron on the ground. They were not the 5 adulterers that he had imagined. When the 5 puppets saw Di Baiming enter, they automatically protected Yun Chujio behind them. Just when Di Baiming was feeling extremely awkward, Yun Chujio said faintly, "Prince Charming, you are really lacking in the 5 elements. Did you have a grudge with the sect in your previous life? You also smashed the door of this house. How am I supposed to sleep at night? This venerable self will help you remove the door." Di Baiming left these words, leaving only an afterimage of Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio pouted and said to the 5 puppets, "It seems that there's no need for you to stand guard for me tonight. A fool has delivered himself to my door." Yun Chujio put away the 5 puppets, then lay on the bed and looked at a certain person who quickly returned with a door. Yun Chujio curled her lips slightly. It seemed that the pretty boy's heart was still in a mess. Otherwise, why didn't he put the door into his storage ring and carried it over by himself? How could Di Biming do such a rough job like in men? After a long time he still hadn't settled down. He could only take out Enfeng's voice transmission talisman and asked gloomily, "How are you going to men?" Enfeng, who was rushing to the scenery city, was speechless. A familiar smell, a familiar formula. Did their lord break the door of the ninth miss again? If you have the ability, don't fix the door for her. You really owe her. Although Enfeng was complaining in his heart, he still gave a detailed and patient instruction to Enfeng. After all, Enfeng could be said to be familiar with the door. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Speaking of which, he felt bitter and sad. He had helped their esteemed lord and the palace master's wife to settle down countless doors. It was truly a sin. Finally, Enfeng guided a certain and to settle down the doors. A certain Jiao's smiling voice was heard just as a certain Jiao was about to leave. Prince Charming, since you can't sleep because you're thinking about me when you go back, then stop tormenting yourself. Let's sleep together. Di Biming wanted to refute her, but when he saw that Yun Chujia's hair was still wet, he immediately walked towards Yun Chujio unhappily. Yun Chujio saw the anger in Di Biming's eyes and her heart tightened. He was done for. She had gone too far. Would this crazy person spank her little bottom? Di Biming walked to the bedside and said unhappily, "Why don't you dry your hair?" Yun Chujio. While this guy was still confused, he saw Di Biming pull her up and take out a handkerchief to dry her hair. Then he used his spiritual power to help her dry her hair completely. Don't you know that you have a mental illness? What if you catch a cold and it causes a mental illness? You spend the whole day thinking about useless things. Why aren't you paying attention to these important things? Yun Chujia was dumbfounded. Did the living dead become a chatterbox? Di Biming finally finished his long speech and said, "I'm not concerned about you, nor am I concerned about you. If your mental illness were to happen again, I wouldn't be able to leave to handle my matters. Don't think too much." Yun Chujio, this fellow curled his lips in his heart. Was it useful to say these words to an experienced driver like her? Chapter 3408 was a step-by-step process. Hei Xinjie rolled her eyes, and bad water came out of her eyes. She looked like she was about to cry. Sob sob. I know that I don't have any status in your heart. I'm your burden. If that's the case, why do you care about me? Just let me live and die on my own. Di Biming was very annoyed when he saw this, but he did not know what to say. His heart was in a mess now and he could only say with a straight face, "It's late. Go to sleep." While he was half asleep, Di Biming only realized later. Why was he sleeping here in a daze? Just as he was thinking, Yun Chujia was nestled in his arms again, muttering, "Beauty, my little beauty." Just as Di Biming was in a daze, the person in his arms started to move up, down, and her hands. Di Biming was both embarrassed and annoyed. Why did everything go wrong when he met this little girl? He got off the bed in anger and stood by the side of the bed, looking at a certain Jiao who continued to move up, down, and her hands. He was speechless. He stood by the side of the bed for a while and his chaotic mood calmed down a lot. His face returned to its usual calm. He took out the futon and began to meditate on the ground. The next morning, Hei Xinjie opened her eyes and stretched. Then she caught a glimpse of Di Biming, who was meditating on the ground. This fellow looked at the quilt that she had crushed into a ball and felt a little annoyed. What the fuck? She had thought that the gigolo had been enlightened, but it seemed that he had to simmer it down slowly. Yun Chujio felt that she could not force him too much. He had to take things slowly and gradually. Therefore, after he got up, he did not continue to act like a demon. He washed up and ate his breakfast. He did not bother with Di Biming, who was meditating. Di Biming naturally noticed that Yun Chujio had woken up. He thought that Yun Chujio would pester him again and ask him to prepare breakfast. He did not expect that Hei Xinjie did not bother with him at all. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Di Biming felt a hint of unhappiness in his heart. He could not tell exactly why he was unhappy, so he decided not to think about it and continued to meditate on the ground. Yun Chujio finished her breakfast and said to Di Biming, who was meditating, "I'm going to the city wall to inspect it. I reckon that you don't have time to accompany me, so I'll go by myself. You can continue to cultivate." Yun Chujio did not wait for Di Biming's reply. She walked out of the courtyard and came to the bottom of the city wall. When the soldiers of the Dongfeng kingdom saw Yun Chujio, they all knelt down and bowed. The female emperor of Zephyr City toppling beauty is unparalleled in the world. Even the soldiers of the other three kingdoms also knelt down and bowed. After fighting side by side for this period of time, they admired the courage and wisdom of the female emperor of Zephyr City toppling beauty from the bottom of their hearts. The prestige of the female emperor of Zephyr was even higher than that of their own country's monarch. Yun Chujio waved her claws indifferently. All of you get up. It's been tough defending the city, but don't worry, I won't mistreat you. Hearing Yun Chujio's words, everyone cheered again. Not far away, Di Baiming, who followed closely, saw this scene, and the feelings in his heart became even more complicated. Although he had removed a part of the seal and his spiritual power had increased greatly, he still did not have his own power. In some aspects he could not even compare to little Jiao. It seemed that he had to take back what originally belonged to him. Yun Chujio inspected the city wall and found nothing unusual. The people of the Jingmu kingdom were probably scared out of their wits by the gigolo. Chapter 3409 was a certain someone in Anmen. Yun Chujio went down the city wall and found Di Baiming standing not far away. This guy curled his lips in his heart. Didn't he not care about her? Wasn't his heart like dead water? Then why did he follow her here? For a walk? This guy walked to Di Baiming's side and said in surprise, Prince Charming, why are you here? Are you concerned about me? Di Baiming looked at her coldly and said coldly, I'm just taking a walk. Yun Chujio. She couldn't be bothered to expose him. Anyway, there was still a long way to go and there would be a chance to deal with him sooner or later. After returning to the city lord's mansion, He Xinjiu still ignored Di Baiming and didn't follow Di Baiming to his house. Instead, she entered the house without a door and continued to draw talismans. Di Baiming meditated and cultivated for a while. He felt a little irritated. After hesitating for a while, he released his spiritual sense to check. He saw that the little girl was concentrating on drawing talismans. Di Baiming stared at Yun Chujio's focused side profile and couldn't help but feel a little dazed. At this moment, Yun Chujio seemed to have sensed something and tilted her head to blink her eyes. Di Baiming was so scared that he immediately retracted his spiritual sense. His heart was beating violently. Could it be that she had discovered it? How could it be? His spiritual sense was very powerful. How could that little girl notice him? It must be a coincidence. Even so, Di Baiming did not dare to release his spiritual sense to check. That little girl was too cunning. If she knew that he did this, she would definitely climb up. Di Baiming closed his eyes and wanted to continue meditating. However, no matter what he said, he could not calm down. He was really annoyed. What was wrong with him? Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. He paced back and forth in the room and then his gaze fell on the door at the door. A glimmer of light flashed in his eyes and he hurriedly left the room. A moment later, Yun Chujio, who was concentrating on drawing talismans in the room, saw a certain someone carrying a door and walking to the door expressionlessly. This door was broken by me. I will help you install the door, Di Baiming said coldly. Yun Chujio nodded and continued to draw the talisman. Seeing this, the uneasiness in the heart of a certain venerate grew even more. He started to draw the door. Not to mention getting familiar with it, the efficiency of a certain venerate had greatly increased. After drawing the door, a certain venerate glanced at He Xinjiu, who was still focused on drawing the talisman. He frowned and said unhappily, Don't you know that you have a mental illness? You have been drawing for several hours. Do you want your mental illness to flare up and win my sympathy? Yun Chujio finally lifted her head and looked at him. You are a person without emotions and desires. How would you know what sympathy is? However, you are right. I have indeed been drawing for a long time. I will go out for a walk. You can cultivate in the city lord's mansion. You don't have to protect me. After Yun Chujio finished speaking, she put away the talisman brush and strolled out of the house. She did not bother with a certain someone whose expression was obviously not too good. Di Baiming looked at Yun Chujio's lively back and felt very annoyed. Just when he was unable to process his thoughts, a sharp pain came from his body. His expression changed and he hurriedly sat down cross-legged. He used his spiritual power to suppress the intense pain and coldness that kept on surging. Soon his body was covered in a layer of ice. The ice was getting thicker and thicker and he looked like an ice sculpture. Yun Chujio hopped around outside. She did not know why, but she was a little flustered. She had no choice but to hop back to the city lord's mansion. Chapter 34:10 I know what's going on. The moment Yoon Choo-ju got close to her courtyard, she felt a bone-chilling cold. She pushed open the door and saw that the trees, flowers, and plants in the courtyard had all been frozen to the point of withering. Her heart tightened, and when she raised her head, she saw Di Biming, who had already become an ice sculpture. Yoon Choo-ji's head buzzed. Just as she was about to go forward and help Di Biming break the hard ice on Di Biming's body suddenly exploded, and Di Biming opened his eyes. Yoon Choo-ji's heart tightened. If the previous Di Biming still had a trace of humanity and anger, then the current Di Biming was really no different from an ice sculpture. What was going on? Di Biming looked at Yoon Choo-ju without any emotion in his eyes. He only said in a declarative tone, "I will go and take care of Emperor Mu Xian now. I believe you can handle the rest of the matters on your own. If you have a mental illness, I will find a famous doctor to treat you. You don't have to worry. If you are in any danger, just send me a voice transmission talisman." After Di Biming finished speaking, he turned into an afterimage and disappeared in front of Yoon Choo-ju. Yoon Choo-ju was stunned for a moment. Did this mean that all her previous efforts had been in vain? How did things turn out like this after she went out? Yoon Choo-ju felt that all the strength in her body had been drained and she collapsed on the ground. What exactly was going on? The nightmare beast that was kept by Yoon Choo-ju in the bushes jumped over while trembling. Damn, I'm freezing to death. I'm really envious of long hair now. Little fairy, don't be anxious. I know what's going on. Meng Yanshou looked at Yoon Choo-ju. Yoon Choo-ju looked up at Meng Yanshou. Speak. Meng Yanshou knew that Yoon Choo-ju was in a bad mood, so he didn't dare to keep her in suspense. He quickly said, "Xing Zun's body is frozen. His old illness must have relapsed. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks, I think he sealed his 7 emotions and 6 desires to resist the cold poison. Previously, you aroused his mortal heart, so the seal was loosened, so his old illness immediately flared up. When his old illness acted up, he had no choice but to seal his 7 emotions and 6 desires again. Moreover, it seems that the seal is even tighter than the last time, so he has become even colder." When Yoon Choo-ju heard Meng Yanshou's words, her heart welled up with traces of pain. If there was still some resentment before, now it had turned into tenderness. She bit her lips. Forget it. Next time she would not flirt with him. Anyway, it was good that she knew that he had her in his heart. When the old illness was cured, she would look for him to settle the score. Yoon Choo-ju's ability to adjust her heart was extraordinary. Thinking of this, she did not feel so bad anymore. She took out a voice transmission talisman from her storage ring. "Prince Charming, I will take care of myself. You have to be careful." On the other side, Di Biming received Yoon Choo-ju's voice transmission talisman. His expression did not change at all, but he still replied with an emotionless When Yoon Choo-ju heard Di Biming's she was very satisfied. At the very least, she could still answer her. This was not bad. Alright, her requirements were already so low. There was no one else who had such a good-tempered girlfriend. Just as Yoon Choo-ju was thinking about it, Shue Wuji's voice transmission talisman started to vibrate. "Little sister Ju, what did you do? Why did that expressionless man change his mind again? Did he ask Feng and me to return to that damned place again?" Brother Wuji has a long story to tell. In short, he originally returned to the secular world, but now he has shaved his head again. On the other side, Shue Wuji. Chapter 34:11 was an all-out war at night. Yoon Choo-ju had a barbecue party with the silly girls in the yard. Her depressed mood was finally somewhat relieved. There was indeed a famous saying that nothing could not be solved by a barbecue. If one meal was not enough, then two. 2 days later, Emperor Mu Xian suddenly died. A few princes of the Jing Mu kingdom began to fight for the throne. The army stationed in the East Phoenix kingdom had all retreated back to the Jing Mu kingdom. Hei Xingjiu blinked her eyes. This was a once-in-lifetime opportunity. She would be a fool if she didn't seize this opportunity to conquer the Jingwood kingdom. Therefore, after Emperor Nan Xian and the others had conquered all 6 vassal states, the allied army of the 4 kingdoms began to conquer the Jingwood kingdom. The princes of the Jingwood kingdom didn't have the energy to resist the foreign enemies anymore. They were all trying to seize the throne. Moreover, they didn't care about the allied forces of the four countries at all. They thought that the Jingmu Kingdom's cities were strong, and the allied forces of the four countries wouldn't be able to take down a few cities in a short time. It wouldn't be too late to deal with the allied forces of the four countries after the throne was confirmed. Unexpectedly, when the fight for the throne of the Jingmu Kingdom finally came to an end, the newly ascended Emperor Gongzhou received the news that the allied forces of the four countries had already taken over half of the Jingmu Kingdom's territory before he could sit firmly on the throne. They were heading towards Gongshi City. Emperor Gongzhou felt a little numb. If the four-country alliance army took over Gongshi City, then the defense line of the Jingmu Kingdom would collapse. It was very likely that the four-country alliance army would take over Jing City. Emperor Gongzhou quickly mobilized 200,000 troops to Gongshi City. He was determined to stop the four-country alliance army in Gongshi City and even chase them out of the Jingmu Kingdom. The general who led the troops this time was an old acquaintance of Yun Chujio. It was Imperial Chancellor Lu. Imperial Chancellor Lu was really good at following the wind. When he heard that the crown prince had died, he directly placed his bet on Emperor Gongzhou. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. After Imperial Chancellor Lu ascended the throne, he immediately married Lu Hanyan as his empress. Imperial Chancellor Lu once again became the ruler of 1 man and 10,000 men. Therefore, Imperial Chancellor Lu brought his troops to Gongshi City this time to use all his strength to deal with the allied forces of the four countries. Otherwise, he would not be able to maintain his glory and wealth. After Imperial Chancellor Lu brought his troops to Gongshi City, he waited for the arrival of the allied forces of the four countries. Imperial Chancellor Lu was still very confident. The 200,000 troops that he brought along with the 50,000 troops that were originally stationed in Gongshi City made a total of 250,000. Although the four-nation alliance army had 300,000 soldiers, their spiritual power was generally lower than that of the Jingmu Kingdom army. In addition, Gongshi City was easy to defend and difficult to attack. It was simply wishful thinking for the four-nation alliance army to take over Gongshi City. Moreover, they had lost so many cities previously because of the fight for the throne of the Jingmu Kingdom. Otherwise, the four-nation alliance army would not have won by luck. Soon, the four-nation alliance army arrived outside Gongshi City. However, they did not attack the city immediately. Instead, they camped outside Gongshi City. In the meeting tent of the four-country alliance army, everyone was discussing countermeasures. Your Majesty Fenghua, our morale is high. Why don't we attack the city directly? Emperor Nanxian was in high spirits. He thought that the Jingwood country was great, but in the end they did not even dare to fight. If he had known earlier, he would not have been bullied by them in the past. Yun Chujio glanced at him. There are 250,000 Jingwood country troops in Gongshi City. Do you think that we can succeed? Haven't you heard of going all out and failing again? If we are defeated in one attack, our morale will be low. So we have to plan carefully before we can attack the city. Chapter 34:12. Military Order. Emperor Nanxian had been extremely arrogant these days. How could he listen to Yun Chujio's words? He said indignantly, Your Majesty Fenghua, aren't you being too arrogant? You're ruining the spirit of our own people. The Jingmu Kingdom is just a paper tiger. Doesn't have any ability to resist at all. Emperor Shiwen and Emperor Beijing, do you think this is the case? Your Majesty Fenghua, I think what Emperor Nanxian said makes sense. The Jingwood Kingdom is just a facade and doesn't have any fighting strength. We might as well finish the battle as soon as possible so that there won't be any trouble. Emperor Shiwen agreed. Emperor Beijing added, Yes, the new emperor of the Jingwood Kingdom has just ascended the throne, and the throne hasn't been firmly established yet. The army he has mobilized is also a motley crew. We can totally take down Gongshi City in one go. Emperor Shiwen and Emperor Beijing were also a little complacent. They had conquered the other 6 vassal states without much effort. Moreover, ever since they had entered the Jingwood Kingdom they had been unstoppable. They hadn't encountered any strong resistance at all, so they also felt that Yun Chujio was making a mountain out of a molehill. Yun Chujio glanced at the 3 of them. Since you insist on attacking the city, just pretend that I didn't say anything just now. However, this siege is no small matter. If it fails, countless lives will be sacrificed. 3 of you, do you dare to issue a military order? Hearing Yun Chujio's provocative words, Emperor Nanxian and the other two naturally did not show any weakness. In a muddle-headed manner they issued a military order. If they could not take down Gonshur city within 3 days, they would listen to Yun Chujia's arrangements in the future. They could not have any more objections. When the three of them regained their senses, they had already pressed their hand seals and sealed the jade seals of the 3 kingdoms. It was too late to go back on their words. However, when the three of them thought about it, a mere Gonshur city wasn't a problem at all. 3 days were enough. Hence, Emperor Nanxian and the other two immediately mobilized their troops and began to attack the city. Prime Minister Sima secretly moved closer to Empress Jiao and asked in a low voice, "Your Majesty, what do you think their chances of winning are? Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks, there's no chance of winning." Prime Minister Sima. Then why didn't you stop them? After this defeat we have lost at least tens of thousands of people. Prime Minister Sima said worriedly. Firstly, if I stop them they will only have a rebellious mentality. They might not listen to me. Secondly, not only them but even the people below them are drifting. If we don't teach them a lesson they will not learn their lesson. Thirdly, Yun Chujio said this, she laughed sinisterly. Prime Minister Sima shivered. Whenever their emperor smiled like this, someone would be in trouble. Yun Chujio laughed a few times and continued. Thirdly, it is only a matter of time before the Jingwood kingdom is taken down. When that time comes, we will definitely have to redivide the territory. If I don't have something on the 3 of them, how will I make them bow down to me? Prime Minister Sima was stunned. He silently lit a big red candle for Emperor Nanxian and the other two. Did they want to play tricks with His Majesty? Play them to death without any discussion. On the other side, Emperor Nanxian and the other two were in high spirits. Although a little girl was strong, how strong could she be? At the crucial moment it was up to them. That night the 4-country alliance army launched an attack. Imperial Chancellor Lu was already prepared. All of a sudden poison arrows, rolling stones, logs and talismans were shot out from the city wall. He also learned from Yun Chujio and dug out the poison blade trap. Although there was only 1 layer of poison blade, it caused many casualties among the 4-country alliance army. Chapter 34:13. Empress Jiao's scolding array. Emperor Nanxian and the other two did not pay much attention to it at the start. How could a siege not kill people? However, seeing that the sky had turned cold and bright, there was still no progress. Furthermore, the defending troops of Gonshur city were getting stronger and stronger. On the other hand, the allied forces of the 4 countries were already tired after the days of fighting and could not take down the city. Their morale plummeted. Although the hearts of Emperor Nanxian and the other two were beating a little, they still forced the allied forces of the 4 countries to continue attacking. Within 3 days, the allied forces of the 4 countries had launched several attacks. More than 30,000 people were killed and injured, but there was no progress at all. Imperial Chancellor Lu was good at buying people's hearts. He gave a speech to the soldiers of the Jingmu kingdom. The gist of it was to say that the allied forces of the 4 countries were invaders and they were protecting the country. They stood at the moral high ground. All of a sudden, the morale of the Jingwood kingdom was unprecedentedly high. Seeing that there was no progress, Emperor Nanxian and the other two had no choice but to come to see Empress Jiao. Empress Jiao glanced at them, but she didn't rub salt on their wounds. Instead, she said lightly, "Since you have lost, then listen to my arrangements from now on. Go and rest." Emperor Nanxian and the other two walked out of the meeting tent dejectedly. Emperor Nanxian suddenly stopped in his tracks and said, "Ah?" From her tone, why do I feel that we are inferior to her? Emperor Beijing glanced at him. What do you mean by inferior? It's already good that she didn't take the opportunity to make fun of us. Do you want her to say something unpleasant? Let's go back and rest. I haven't slept well for the past 3 days. Let's sleep first. Emperor Nanxian thought that he was right. Perhaps he was overthinking things, so the 3 of them returned to the tent to rest. Seeing that Emperor Nanxian and the other two had left, Prime Minister Sima asked, "Your Majesty, do you have a way to break the city?" Yun Chujio shook her head. "Not at the moment. Let's rest for a day first. We'll go scold the enemy tomorrow." Prime Minister Sima did not continue to ask. His Majesty was not good at other things, but his scolding skills were top-notch. He would just have to watch the show tomorrow. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. The next day Yun Chujio had breakfast and rode the giant rabbit to the front of the camp. Hey, the leader of the opposite side has come out. I have something to say to you. Yun Chujio sat on the giant rabbit and said lightly. Soon Imperial Chancellor Lu, who had received the news, stood on the city wall. He saw that it was Yun Chujio and he looked behind her worriedly. Seeing that there was indeed no wild man from the legend, his heart instantly calmed down. He had already sent people to inquire about it. That wild man had left a long time ago. Otherwise he would really have a headache. Female Emperor Fenghua, what do you have to say? The allied forces of the 4 countries invaded our Jingmu kingdom for no reason. You are really shameless to the extreme. Imperial Chancellor Lu said righteously. The soldiers of the Jingmu kingdom also joined in the jeering. They were nothing more than scolding the allied forces of the 4 countries for invading the territories of other countries. They were shameless and so on. The allied forces of the 4 countries had already been somewhat demoralized after being defeated. When they heard Imperial Chancellor Liu's words, the moral high ground was also occupied by the Jingmu kingdom, and their morale immediately fell even lower. At this moment they heard Yun Chujio chuckle. Yo, I've seen shameless people before, but this is the first time I've seen someone as shameless as you. We invaded your Jingmu kingdom for no reason? What a joke. Not long ago your Jingmu kingdom sent a letter to our East Phoenix kingdom, asking me, the emperor of a kingdom, to be the former crown prince's side concubine. Isn't this a blatant provocation? However, for the sake of peace and the overall situation, our East Phoenix kingdom did not do anything disrespectful. Moreover, in order to express our sincerity, I personally went to the Jingmu kingdom, and the other 3 emperors accompanied me personally. Yun Chujio paused at this point and a mocking smile appeared on her face. But what happened next showed me what it means to be treacherous, to rely on the strong to bully the weak and to be shameless. She continued, what the higher-ups said are all great principles. Our 4-nation alliance army is the righteous side. In addition, the cultivation world has always respected the strong. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any first-class or third-class countries. Therefore, you don't have to talk to me about invading or not invading. I'll tell you the truth. I have my eyes on the Wellwood Kingdom and want to annex it. What are you going to do about it? Those who don't want to die and want to make a fortune quickly surrender. Otherwise, you will only die. Don't forget, I am the messenger of the divine phoenix, the darling of the Tiandao. What right do you have to fight with me? Also, my empress will be back in a few days. Just you little scumbags, he can easily kill a large number of them. Those who don't want to die quickly surrender. Imperial Chancellor Lu had a stomach full of words that had been refuted by Yun Chujio's shamelessness. When faced with such a shameless person, any words were useless. The people of the 4 countries alliance army felt that their Emperor Fenghua was simply too domineering. Only such a woman was worthy to be their king. They had an inexplicable belief that as long as their emperor followed them, he would definitely be invincible and invincible. Chapter 34:15. Crazy boyfriend. The soldiers of the Jingmu kingdom had also suffered a severe blow to their worldview. Previously, they had thought that what Imperial Chancellor Lu had said was very reasonable. They were protecting their country and they were representing the side of justice. However, after listening to the words of the female emperor of the Zephyr Kingdom, they felt that all of this was the doing of the Jingmu Kingdom, and they had brought this upon themselves. Moreover, he felt that although the spiritual power of the female emperor of Zephyr was a little low, she was much stronger than the Gongzhou emperor, who only knew how to seize the throne. Also, the sudden death of the late emperor might have been caused by the fiancé of the female emperor of Phoenix. He heard that the fiancé of the female emperor of Zephyr was very powerful. It was still fine if he wasn't here. But if he came back, how could they survive? Imperial Chancellor Lu held it in for a long time before he finally said, "There's no point in talking anymore. I'll see you on the battlefield." Yun Chujio shrugged nonchalantly. That sounds nice, but you guys are hiding in Gonshir City like assholes. How are we going to fight to the death? If you have the ability, come out. Imperial Chancellor Lu couldn't figure out Yun Chujio's intention at the moment. If she set a trap, he would be walking into a trap if he rashly led his troops to battle. Therefore, he ignored Yun Chujio's provocation and left the city wall. Yun Chujio curled her lips and said to Emperor Nanxian and the other two, "Pick a sharp-tongued and loud-mouthed one and scold me non-stop." Emperor Nanxian and the other two obviously had not recovered from Yun Chujio's shameless words. They nodded blankly. After Yun Chujio returned to the meeting tent, she held her chin and thought about how to take over Gonshir City. Fighting head-on was definitely not going to work. In terms of strength, they could not beat the Jingmu army. Luckily, Imperial Chancellor Lu was too cautious. Otherwise, if he brought his troops out to fight, the four-country alliance army might be defeated. The reason why she had people curse was to create confusion so that Imperial Chancellor Lu would not come back to his senses and bring his troops out to fight. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Yun Chujio gathered Emperor Nanxian and the others to discuss. After a day of discussion, they could not come up with any good ideas, so Yun Chujio had no choice but to dismiss them. This fellow washed up briefly in the evening and lay in the tent. After pondering for a long time, he did not make any progress. He rubbed his chin. Forget it. Since he had nothing to do anyway, he could chat with Empress D. This fellow took out a voice transmission talisman and sent a few messages to D. Biming. It was nothing more than to tell him about the recent situation, telling him to be careful of Yun Yun. This fellow was shrewd. From time to time, his boyfriend would have to swear an oath of sovereignty, so that those flirtatious bitches would not have a chance to take advantage of him. Even if D. Biming had sealed his 7 emotions and 6 desires, it was still better to tease him a little when he had nothing to do. Teasing him a little would hurt his body, but teasing him a little would bring him pleasure. Cough cough. To be honest, Yun Chujio did not expect D. Biming to be able to reply. After all, today was different from the past. He was a cold-hearted master. Who would have thought that after a while the voice transmission talisman actually started to vibrate? Yun Chujio could not wait to send her divine sense in. D. Biming's emotionless voice came from within. Get to the point. Yun Chujio was stunned for a moment before she reacted. D. Biming meant that she had rambled on and on. What did he want to say? Yun Chujio gritted her teeth and squeezed out a sentence. It's okay, my balls hurt. Very soon Yun Chujio received another reply from D. Biming. 1. You don't have any eggs. 2. Don't waste the voice transmission talisman. Yun Chujio, her boyfriend turned into a psychopath. Why did he break? Chapter 34. 16 Poisonous Mushrooms. Yun Chujio angrily kept the sound transmission talisman and thought to herself, pretty boy, I'm not afraid to settle the score. Well, just wait and see. In the next few days, the four-country alliance army sent people to scold them, but the Jingmu country did not have any reaction. Yun Chujio asked the four-country alliance army to dig some traps, but Emperor Nanxian and the other two did not think much of it. The Jingmu country army obviously would not come out to fight, so what was the use of digging or not? Yun Chujio glanced at the 3 of them. This is called being prepared. If the Jingmu army really comes out, are you sure you can win? Emperor Nanxian and the other 2 did not say anything. They had been really arrogant a few days ago, and after being defeated, they had become much more obedient. Yun Chujio was actually really anxious. If this continued, the longer it dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for the four-country alliance army. They needed to think of a way to break through the city as soon as possible. Fortune does not come in pairs and misfortune does not come in pairs. Just as Yun Chujio was worried about attacking the city, people in the army were poisoned one after another. Some vomited, some had diarrhea, and some had hallucinations. Luckily, as they discovered it early, no one lost their lives because of this. When Yun Chujio received the report, her heart tightened. Could it be that a spy had poisoned their food? After a careful investigation, she found out that there was a dense forest not far from where the army was stationed, and there were many mushrooms growing inside. The soldiers in charge of food wanted to improve their food, so they picked a lot of mushrooms and stewed them with the chicken. They did not expect that there might be some poisonous mushrooms mixed in, which caused this small accident. After hearing the reason, Emperor Nanxian said angrily, "They are simply looking for trouble. They don't lack food, so why pick mushrooms when they have nothing to do?" Emperor Shiwen echoed, "That's right, we must punish those cooks. If we hadn't found them earlier, and if the soldiers were poisoned on a large scale, how terrible would it be? Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site." Thanks. Emperor Beijing sighed. It would be great if the people guarding the city ate these poisonous mushrooms. It would be much easier for us to attack the city. What did you say? Empress Jiao asked as she stared at Emperor Beijing with sparkling eyes. Emperor Beijing was a little scared by Yun Chujia's stare. He stuttered, I said how great it would be if these poisonous mushrooms were eaten by the people of the Jingmu kingdom. Yun Chujia's heart skipped a beat. She remembered that in the psychedelic forest she had said that she wanted to eat poisonous mushrooms. Xiao Mogu had summoned a large number of poisonous mushrooms. Xiao Mogu should be able to attract those poisonous mushrooms. However, she didn't know if she could command those poisonous mushrooms. Emperor Beijing and the other two couldn't help but look dumbfounded when they saw Yun Chujio standing there with a silly smile on her face. Was this girl stupid? Yun Chujio came back to her senses and said, let's go and take a look at that dense forest. Emperor Nanxian and the other two didn't understand. What were they going to look at in that dense forest? Could it be that this girl was also craving for stewed chicken and mushrooms? Wasn't she afraid of being poisoned to death? Although the three of them were filled with suspicion, they still followed Empress Jiao to that dense forest. The area of this dense forest wasn't small, and it extended all the way to the valley in the distance. The deeper they went, the thicker the fog became. Furthermore, the deeper they went, the more mushrooms there were. Your Majesty Fenghua, you can't go any further in. The mushrooms in there can emit poisonous gas. If you're not careful, your life might be in danger, Prime Minister Sima advised from the side. Yun Chujia waved her hand and said, you guys stay here. We'll go in and take a look. We'll be back soon. Before the crowd could react, Yun Chujio had already jumped far away. Chapter 34-19 Imperial Decree. Lu Hanyan said with admiration, Father, are you trying to drive a wedge between the four of them? Imperial Chancellor Lu nodded. That's right. We can go through thick and thin together, but we can't go through thick and thin together. Now that the Jingmu kingdom has been taken over by them, they must have selfish motives in order to divide the sphere of influence. I will use the Imperial Decree as a bargaining chip. Father, your plan is very good, but you'd better not let that bitch succeed. Otherwise she will definitely not let us off, Lu Hanyan said viciously. Of course. No matter who among Emperor Nanxian and the other two finally gets the Imperial Jade Seal, Father will let them take you as their concubine. With your skills, the position of Empress will be yours sooner or later. As soon as the father and daughter finished their discussion, the Imperial Palace was taken over. Yun Chujio, Emperor Nanxian and the others rushed to the throne room. Imperial Chancellor Lu held the Imperial Jade Seal high in his hand. He said loudly, all of you don't move. If anyone comes any closer, I will self-detonate my Dantian and destroy this Imperial Jade Seal. In that case, none of you will be able to be the rightful emperor of the Jingmu kingdom. Emperor Nanxian and the other two immediately waved their hands and ordered the soldiers behind them to stop moving forward. Then they looked at Empress Jiao and said, Your Majesty Fenghua, this Imperial Jade Seal is not a small matter. What do you think we should do? Empress Jiao smiled faintly and asked, Imperial Chancellor Lu, what do you want in exchange for this Imperial Jade Seal? Seeing that everyone had stopped moving, Imperial Chancellor Lu looked pleased with himself and said loudly, A kingdom cannot be without a ruler for a day. Which of the four of you wants to be the ruler of the Jingmu kingdom? Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Emperor Nanxian and the other two men were naturally envious of the position of the ruler of the Jingmu kingdom. Although they had agreed in advance that they would reclassify their sphere of influence, the spiritual energy and properties of the Jingmu kingdom were much stronger than those of the 10 vassal kingdoms. They would rather have the Jingmu kingdom than the 10 vassal states. However, although the three of them had ulterior motives, none of them dared to say it out loud. After all, they were all wary of each other right now, so none of them could break the balance first. When Imperial Chancellor Lu saw the expressions on the faces of Emperor Nanxian and the other two, he immediately understood what they were thinking. In his heart he had a greater chance of success in his plan. He continued, How about this? If any of your Majesty can promise to take us in, I will present the Imperial Jade Seal to him and assist him in familiarizing himself with the various affairs of the Jingmu kingdom as soon as possible. Emperor Nanxian and the other two exchanged a glance, then looked at Yun Chujio, who had a faint smile on her face. They were hesitant in their hearts. Should they shed all pretense of cordiality or not? Just as the three of them were hesitating, they heard Yun Chujio say calmly, "Old thief Lu, you are really cunning. Are you trying to drive a wedge between the four countries? If the four countries fall apart and the other second-tier countries take the opportunity to enter, wouldn't we all die? You are really ruthless." Hearing Yun Chujio's words, Emperor Nanxian and the other two felt a chill in their hearts. Yes, the Jingmu kingdom was destroyed, but there were still other second-tier countries. If they rebelled, they would probably be destroyed by the other second-tier kingdoms very soon. Imperial Chancellor Lu was really vicious. Imperial Chancellor Lu did not expect that his plan would be so easily destroyed by Yun Chujio. He gritted his teeth. "Alright, I'll take a step back. As long as you let us father and daughter live, I'll give you the Imperial Jade Seal. Otherwise, I'd rather self-destruct than let you be the rightful emperor of the Jingwood Kingdom." Emperor Nanxian said weakly, "Emperor Fenghua, why don't we let them go? If we don't have the Imperial Jade Seal, we won't be able to answer to the people of the Jingmu Kingdom." Chapter 34:20. The Imperial Jade Seal carved by the big carrot. Emperor Shiwen and Emperor Beijing echoed. "Yes, it's a small matter whether the father and daughter are alive or dead, but the Imperial Jade Seal is a big matter." Empress Jiu smiled faintly. "I have never been threatened by others. Do you think a mere Imperial Jade Seal can threaten me? What nonsense Imperial Jade Seal. It's just a stone. As long as I hold great power, I can even pick up a pebble by the river and use it as the Imperial Jade Seal. If you want to destroy it, then destroy it." Imperial Chancellor Lu was dumbstruck when he heard that. However, on second thought, this Empress Zephyr must be lying to him. He couldn't be fooled. Hence he said, "What you say is easy. I don't believe it. If you don't have the Imperial Jade Seal, how are you going to convince the masses?" Yun Chujio spread her hands and pointed at Prime Minister Sima beside her. "Tell everyone." Prime Minister Sima. Why would such a shameful matter always fall on him? However, he did not dare to disobey Yun Chujio's orders. He could only thicken his skin and say, "My emperor is right. The Imperial Jade Seal is just a stone." When His Majesty ascended the throne, the Imperial Jade Seal was stolen by the previous crown prince. His Majesty simply used a radish to carve the Imperial Jade Seal, and then changed it to a 1,000-year-old cold jade material. Everyone, holy shit. How could this be? The Imperial Jade Seal carved by a big radish? Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Yun Chujio looked at the dumbfounded crowd. She smiled faintly and said, "Although the Imperial Jade Seal is a symbol of imperial power, I am the supreme imperial power. If I say it is the Imperial Jade Seal, it is the Imperial Jade Seal. If I say it is worthless, it is worthless. Go kill him. That piece of broken stone will be buried with him." Hearing Yun Chujio's words, the people behind him immediately rushed forward. Imperial Chancellor Lu and his daughter were no match for them. Although Imperial Chancellor Lu said that he would self-destruct his dantian, he was very afraid of death and would not really self-destruct. In the end, he was killed by the people. The soldier who received the Imperial Jade Seal respectfully presented the Imperial Jade Seal to Empress Jiu. Empress Jiu washed it with water in disgust and then put it into her storage ring very naturally. Only then did Emperor Nanxian and the other two realize that the people who had rushed into the palace behind them were all direct descendants of the East Phoenix Kingdom. They immediately had a bad feeling. Emperor Nanxian gathered his courage and said, "Your Majesty Fenghua, since there is nothing else, we will return to the tent first. We will discuss the redivision of the kingdom tomorrow." Emperor Shiwen and Emperor Beijing also agreed. They felt that if they stayed any longer they would not have a good ending. This person was even capable of using a big carrot as a jade seal. He would definitely be able to betray them easily. If they did not leave now, they might not be able to save their old lives. Empress Jiu laughed crisply. "Your Majesties, why do I feel that you are a little afraid? What are you afraid of? Are you afraid that I will betray you and kill you?" When Emperor Nanxian heard Yun Chujio's words, he felt a chill in his heart. It was over. What he was afraid of came true. This wretched girl was definitely going to kill him. Empress Jiu laughed a few more times. When Emperor Nanxian and the other two heard her laughter, It was like a life-threatening talisman. They could not help but move towards the door of the main hall. Your Majesties, you are overthinking. Since I have signed an alliance with the three of you, I will naturally keep my promise. How about this? We will not take any of the 6 vassal states that we have conquered. You can split them into 2. How about it? I am generous enough, right? Yun Chujio said with a smile. Chapter 3420 will give you 8 reasons Emperor Nanshan and the other 2 almost vomited blood. Generous. You are obviously trying to monopolize the Jingmu kingdom. You are just giving them 2 lousy vassal kingdoms and sending them away? Can you not be so shameless? Emperor Nanshan and the other 2 were so angry that they could not care less about their fear. Emperor Nanshan angrily questioned, Your Majesty Fenghua, what do you mean by this? Do you want to monopolize the Jingmu kingdom? Yun Chujio nodded. That's right. Emperor Nanshan originally thought that Yun Chujio would give it a try, but who would have thought that she would shamelessly admit it? For a moment he did not know what to say. Emperor Shiwen said from the side, Your Majesty Fenghua, back then, we agreed to split it equally. How could you do this? You are betraying us by doing this. Yun Chujio shrugged. Take a good look at our 4 countries alliance agreement. It clearly states that we will divide the territories equally after we take over the vassal states. Our East Phoenix Kingdom has already given up on splitting the vassal states equally with you. What else are you not satisfied with? Don't tell me that you still want to give us a vassal state? Emperor Nanshan and the other 2 were stunned. They took out the 4 countries alliance agreement and read it word by word. What the fuck? It only said that they would divide the territory equally, but it didn't mention the scope of the territory equally. Had they been kicked in the head by a donkey? Emperor Nanshan was so angry that his old face turned red. Your Majesty Fenghua, you are playing with words. You know very well that we are going to divide all the territory equally. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks, that's right, Your Majesty Fenghua. You can't go too far. We could have just stood by and watched, but we helped you take care of the Jingwut kingdom. It's too unfair of you to kill the donkey now. Emperor Shiwen was also very angry. Emperor Beijing didn't say anything because, well, he was so angry that he couldn't speak. Yun Chujio still had a faint smile on her face. The 3 of you must understand a few things. First, you could have just stood by and watched, but the Jingmu kingdom annexed our East Phoenix kingdom, and they will annex the 3 kingdoms of yours next. You helped me to protect yourself, so don't speak so righteously. Second, you clearly have some misunderstanding about the meaning of kill the donkey and grind the mill. If I wanted to kill the donkey and grind the mill, I wouldn't have divided the vassal kingdom to you. Instead, I would have killed you and annexed your 3 kingdoms. Do you think that I don't have the strength now? Third, ask yourselves, in this war, have you contributed more than my East Phoenix kingdom? Have you suffered more losses than my East Phoenix kingdom? Fourth, the Wellwood kingdom borders my East Phoenix kingdom. If it is divided to you, how will you manage it? Do you want me to divide the East Phoenix kingdom to you? Fifth, if our 4 kingdoms divide their strength evenly, it won't be long before we become suspicious of each other. Then we will quickly turn against each other. The final result will definitely be the annexation of other second-class kingdoms. Do you want to see such a scene? Sixthly, are any of the 3 of you confident that you can make the original subjects of the Jingmu kingdom submit? I can do it. Seventhly, you have signed a military order before. From now on, you will listen to me in everything. Are you going to break the contract? Eighthly, I will not treat you unfairly. Although I can only give each of you 2 vassal states now, as my territory expands in the future, you will get more and more benefits. What is a mere second-class country? In the future, I will let you be the rulers of a first-class country. Finally, if the above 8 rules still cannot convince you, then don't blame me for being ruthless. I can only kill you. If you want to live or die, choose for yourself. Chapter 3422. Emperor Nanshan's plea for help. Emperor Nanshan and the other 2 were so angry that they were twitching. What choice did they have? Did they have a choice? This girl was both soft and hard, and she spoke in all the right ways. How could they not agree? The 3 of them looked at each other and said sadly, Then let's do as Emperor Fenghua says. We have no objections. That's great. Your Majesty, please stay here and wait for me to ascend the throne before returning. Let me do my best as a host. Yun Chujio said with a smile. What else could Emperor Nanxian and the other two say? They could only nod their heads and agree. They had no choice but to agree. Yun Chujie knew how to give a sweet slap. After plundering the national treasury of the Jingmu kingdom, she took out a portion and gave it to Emperor Nanxian and the other two. Emperor Nanxian and the other two were so touched that they burst into tears. They didn't expect this little girl to still have a conscience. They had finally seen the money they needed to turn back. Everything proceeded in an orderly manner. 3 days later, Empress Jiao officially ascended the throne. This fellow was very lazy and didn't want to think about any new titles. He still claimed to be the peerless and peerless female emperor, or simply the female emperor. Naturally, the name of the Jingmu kingdom couldn't be used anymore, so it was changed to Dongfeng kingdom. The change of the dynasty was actually for ordinary people. As long as it didn't involve their own interests, no one would care about it. Therefore, Empress Jiao issued a few imperial edicts to reduce taxes, which immediately won praise from the entire country. Most of the original ministers of the Jingmu kingdom were restored to their original positions. Other than the emperor who had changed, the rest were no different from before. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Empress Jiao was eating and drinking in the palace that day when she received Emperor Nanxian's voice transmission talisman. Your Majesty Fenghua, you must help me. I really don't have a way to live. Emperor Nanxian cried. Yun Chujie was shocked. What was wrong with this Emperor Nanxian? Yun Chujie received a few more voice transmission talismans from Emperor Nanxian, and then she understood what had happened. It turned out that the national advisor of the Southern Dragon Kingdom, Jishin, was greedy and lustful. He usually asked Emperor Nanxian to offer some beautiful girls to serve the divine dragon. Emperor Nanxian also turned a blind eye to this. However, he never expected that Jishin's actions were getting more and more arrogant, and he actually had designs on the 7th princess, who was Emperor Nanxian's favorite. If Jishin was as reliable as Yuanji, the national advisor of the East Phoenix Kingdom, Emperor Nanxian would definitely happily send his daughter over. However, all the girls who were sent to Jishin would soon die. How could he bear to let his daughter lose her life? Moreover, the people of the South Dragon Kingdom had long been complaining about this. Emperor Nanxian was also forced into a corner, so he asked Yun Chujie for help. Yun Chujie blinked her eyes. The monarchs of various countries did not have any channels of contact with the Lihan Palace. At least, the monarchs of second and third class countries did not have this right. Therefore, the state preceptor of each country could be said to be very glorious. No one dared to offend them. Yun Chujie rested her chin on her hand and thought for a moment. Then she took out the voice transmission talisman of the imperial advisor of the East Phoenix Kingdom, Yuanji, and prepared to ask him some questions. The reason why Yun Chujie chose to ask the imperial advisor of the East Phoenix Kingdom, Yuanji, and not the imperial advisor of the Jingmu Kingdom, Shirlu, was because Yun Chujie had once gone to the Divine Hall to visit Shirlu, but he had rejected her on the grounds that she was in closed-door cultivation. Therefore, Yun Chujie didn't figure out his methods and didn't plan to have any further contact with him. She only sent people to monitor the movements of the Divine Hall. Although Yun Chujie didn't trust and have a good impression of the state preceptor of the East Phoenix Kingdom, Yuanji, she was still slightly better than the other state preceptor. Chapter 34-23 Patrolling the Southern Dragon Kingdom. This fellow went straight to the point and directly told him about the matter of the state preceptor of the Southern Dragon Kingdom, asking him if he had any way to report this unscrupulous state preceptor to the Lihan Palace. Yuanji replied very quickly. The gist of it was that once the state preceptor was appointed, unless the Lihan Palace voluntarily withdrew, he would be the state preceptor of that kingdom until his death. Moreover, the monarch of a country below second-class country did not have the right to speak directly to the Lihan Palace. When Yun Chujie heard the reply, she could not help but sneer. Wasn't this just letting the imperial tutors of various countries do whatever they wanted? She asked again, is there no other way to change the imperial tutor? After a while, Yuanji replied, unless the divine beast that the imperial tutor is guarding shows its spirit and banishes it, there is no other way to change the imperial tutor. Before Yun Chujie could digest the meaning behind Yuanji's words, she received another voice transmission talisman from Yuanji. Your Majesty Fenghua, retreat now. Don't get yourself into trouble. Yun Chujie was taken aback. This Yuanji was rather interesting. She only replied to Yuanji with 2 words, "Thank you." Yun Chujio put away the voice transmission talisman and wondered if she should intervene in this matter. She was still in her fledgling years. If she offended the Li Hate Palace, she would definitely not have a good ending. However, if she did not care about Emperor Nanxian's life and death, first, it would cause a chill in Emperor Shiwen and Emperor Beijing's hearts. Second, that Jishin had already aroused the anger of the people. If she did not get rid of him, there would be problems sooner or later. She had heard that the 2 state preceptor of the Shiwu Kingdom and the Beixian Kingdom were also very unreasonable. If she allowed them to continue, they would sooner or later become a disaster. Moreover, the person she hated the most in her life was the one who abused women. That Jishin deserved to die. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. After this period of understanding, she felt that the reason why the Lihan Palace had sent the imperial advisors to monitor the various countries and not directly annex them was because they were afraid of them. That was why they would not easily interfere in the affairs of the various countries. As long as she did things properly and did not let the Lihan Palace find any evidence, the Lihan Palace should not openly make things difficult for her. Hence, Yun Chujio took out a voice transmission talisman and replied to Emperor Nanxian, "I will be touring your 3 kingdoms in the next few days. I will start with your southern dragon kingdom and prepare to receive you." After receiving Yun Chujio's voice transmission talisman, Emperor Nanxian naturally understood Yun Chujio's subtext. Although he did not have much hope when he thought about how that little girl was full of bad intentions, he thought that she might really have a way to save his daughter. He immediately began to prepare eagerly. As for Jishin's side, he naturally used the method of delaying. No matter what, he had to hold on until that little girl arrived. After Yun Chujio announced the news that she was going to patrol the 3 countries of the South Dragon Kingdom, everyone did not have any objections. To be exact, they did not dare to have any objections. Female Emperor of Zephyr was ruthless and merciless. She would not go back on her words. If she did not agree with a single word, she would carry a large kitchen knife and slash people. Who the fuck would dare to have objections? Yun Chujio brought along many elite guards and also Prime Minister Sima. To be honest, Prime Minister Sima really didn't want to go with this ancestor because this ancestor was too good at causing trouble. He could already foresee that he would encounter a lot of trouble on this trip. A few days later, Empress Jiao arrived at the capital of the Southern Dragon Kingdom and was naturally warmly welcomed. After some red tape, Emperor Nanxian finally had a chance to be alone with Empress Jiao. Emperor Nanxian said with tears streaming down his face, "Your Majesty Fanghua, I have been too cowardly as an emperor." Jishin was getting more and more outrageous. It was one thing for him to take credit cards, but now he actually had designs on my daughter. He was really going too far. You must help me make a decision. Chapter 34-24 Divine Hall of the Southern Dragon Kingdom. Yun Chujio picked up the teacup on the table and sipped on the tea without saying a word. Emperor Nanxian could not help but feel a little confused. Wasn't this little girl here to support him? Why didn't she say anything? Emperor Nanxian licked his old face and continued, "Your Majesty Fanghua, you have always been resourceful. Do you have any good ideas?" Yun Chujio put down her teacup and glanced at him. "Your Majesty Nanxian, that imperial tutor Jishin, is a member of the Li Hen Palace. What can I do? You think too highly of me." Emperor Nanxian almost vomited blood, but he had a favor to ask. He could only smile and say, "Your Majesty Fanghua, you are extremely talented. You will definitely have a way. As long as you can help me get rid of that Jishin, I will agree to whatever conditions you ask." Yun Chujio curled her lips slightly. "Your Majesty Nanxian, your words are too polite. We will advance and retreat together. We will share honor and disgrace together. What conditions do we need?" Before Emperor Nanxian could express his gratitude, he heard Yun Chujio continue, "You really agree to whatever terms?" Emperor Nanxian. He decided to feed his gratitude to the dogs. Yun Chujio saw Emperor Nanxian's dumbfounded expression. She could not help but smile brightly. "I was just joking with you. However, no matter what we do, we will most likely offend the Lihan Palace. I am bringing trouble upon myself. If the Lihan Palace makes things difficult for me in the future, Emperor Nanxian will not stand by and do nothing, right?" Emperor Nanxian was not a fool. He naturally understood the hidden meaning behind Yun Chujio's words. He had long figured out that if he were to play tricks, he and the other two would not be a match for this girl even if they were tied together. Since that was the case, there was no need to go against her. Moreover, he was more or less touched that Yun Chujio could come and help him deal with Jishin this time. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Hence, Emperor Nanshen said, Your Majesty Fenghua, don't worry. In the future, our Southern Dragon Kingdom will definitely follow your lead and listen to your arrangements. Yun Chujio curled the corners of her lips. That's good. I believe that Your Majesty Nanshen is not a person who goes back on his words. Tomorrow morning bring me to the Divine Hall. I will go and meet that Jishin. Only then did Emperor Nanshen heave a sigh of relief in his heart. He hoped that this little girl would not disappoint him and would be able to think of a way to deal with Jishin. Otherwise, not only would he lose his daughter, he would also incur the wrath of the people sooner or later. His throne would also be in danger. The next morning after breakfast, Emperor Nanshen accompanied Yun Chujio outside the Divine Hall. After the servants of the Divine Hall reported the situation, they welcomed Emperor Nanshen, Yun Chujio and the others inside. Yun Chujio sized up the Divine Halls as she walked. The Divine Halls of the Southern Dragon Kingdom were basically the same as the Divine Halls of the East Phoenix Kingdom, as if they were replicas. Her heart stirred slightly. Could it be that these Divine Halls were all built by the Li-Hate Palace? In that case, what method did the Li-Hate Palace use to suppress so many ancient divine beasts? Just as Yun Chujio was pondering, she felt an uncomfortable gaze. She followed the gaze and saw a middle-aged man dressed in the Imperial Preceptor's uniform sizing her up wantonly. Imperial Preceptor, this is His Majesty Fenghua of the Eastern Phoenix Kingdom. His Majesty Fenghua is touring the three kingdoms and wishes to pay his respects to the Divine Dragon. Please make it easy for him, Emperor Nanshen said politely to Jishin, even with a hint of humility. Jishin's gaze fell on Yun Chujio's beautiful face and he said with a fake smile, Since His Majesty Fenghua is in such a good mood, it is naturally possible. However, His Majesty Nanshen, you are busy with national affairs, so there is no need for you to accompany him here. Just let my imperial tutor accompany His Majesty Fenghua to pay his respects. Chapter 34-25. Had she forgotten about the Empress? Emperor Nanshen was stunned at first, but when he saw the way Jishin stared at Yun Chujio, his heart felt like it was going to explode. Was Jishin planning to take advantage of this girl? The first thought that came to Emperor Nanshen's mind was he fucking tired of living? Even if Emperor Nanshen knew that Jishin was a member of the Li-Hate Palace, even if he knew that Yun Chujio would not easily become enemies with the Li-Hate Palace, he had an inexplicable feeling that a black-hearted person like Yun Chujio would definitely not spare Jishin. While Emperor Nanshen was somewhat worried, there was actually a strange sense of excitement. At first he was worried that Yun Chujio would brush him off and would not do her best. But now there was no need to worry at all. Even if she did not want to help him, this Jishin was seeking his own death. She would definitely think of a way to deal with him. It had to be said that this Jishin had done a good job. Naturally, Emperor Nanshen did not want to leave just like that. He looked at Yun Chujio and asked for her opinion. Yun Chujio curled the corner of her lips and said indifferently, Your Majesty Nanshen, since you are busy with national affairs, you don't have to accompany me. It will be fine as long as National Advisor Jishin is with me. Yun Chujio then looked at Prime Minister Sima and the others who were following behind her. You can also follow His Majesty Nanshen and leave. Just wait for me outside the Divine Hall. Prime Minister Sima's head was buzzing. He knew that His Majesty was a troublemaker. What was she going to do now? It was obvious that Jishin was up to no good. She actually wanted to be alone with him. Had she forgotten about the Empress? Jishin was rather satisfied. He thought to himself, could it be that this Empress Fenghua also had feelings for him? Otherwise, why did she send her subordinates away? Emperor Nanshen exchanged a few more pleasantries before leaving with Prime Minister Sima and the others. Jishin sent his subordinates away as well. Then he said with a malicious expression, I've long heard that Her Majesty is very beautiful. She really lives up to her reputation today. Why don't we go to the room to drink tea first and then pay respects to the Divine Dragon? Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Yun Chujio still had a faint smile on her face. State Preceptor, you're in a good mood. However, let's pay respects to the Divine Dragon first. Jishin thought to himself that this female emperor of Zephyr Nation wouldn't be able to escape from her grasp today anyway, so there was nothing much for him to do. Although her status as the monarch of a second-tier country was somewhat troublesome, she had no way of interacting with the Li Hen Palace. Even if he took advantage of her, she could only suffer in silence. The more Jishin thought about it, the more pleased he became. Soon he brought Yunchujio to the Divine Hall Square. The square of the Divine Hall was no different from the square of the East Phoenix Kingdom. In front of them was still the 9-story altar. Yunchujio's eyes flashed. State Preceptor Jishin, let's begin the ceremony. Jishin's mind was not on this, so he gave a few perfunctory greetings. Yunchujio looked at the altar with burning eyes. If the remnant soul of the divine dragon was suppressed here, things would be much easier. If there was no remnant soul of the dragon god here, then she could only pretend to be a ghost. Anyway, this was her strong point, so she could just act it out. Thinking of this, Yunchujio lifted her leg and walked towards the altar. Jishin did not expect Yunchujio to make such a move. When he wanted to stop her, Yunchujio had already climbed onto the first layer of the altar. He was obviously worried and did not go forward to stop her. Instead he said anxiously, "Emperor Fenghua, come down quickly. Otherwise the dragon god might think that you are sacrificing yourself and eat you directly." Yunchujio smiled, "I am offering myself as a sacrifice. I heard that the dragon god used a lot of young women in the past. I don't think he would reject me, right?" Jishin could not figure out what Yunchujio was up to, but he did not want anything to happen to the beauty in his hands. He said anxiously, "Your Majesty Fenghua, this is not a joke. Come down quickly or the dragon god will really eat you." Yunchujio said sarcastically, "Jishin, as the national master, shouldn't you be very happy to see someone sacrifice himself? Why are you still stopping me? Aren't you letting the dragon god down a little?" Jishin's face stiffened. What was she trying to do? Just as Jishin was puzzled, there was a flash of light on the altar, and Yunchujio disappeared from the spot. Jishin gritted his teeth in frustration. What bad luck. Forget it. It was all that bitch's fault. Although she was good-looking, she was not very smart. Let the dragon god use her. When Yunchujio regained her sight, she found herself in a spacious stone hall. This stone hall was exactly the same as the stone hall of the 5-colored phoenix. In the middle of the stone hall was a stone platform. There was a huge skeleton on it and there were many huge golden scales scattered around it. When Hei Shinjio saw those scales, her eyes immediately curved into a crescent moon. Oh my, this thing looked high-end and high-class. It was the best thing to use to show off. Yunchujio looked around again. There was a pile of women's clothes in the corner. Most of them were close-fitting clothes. A strange thought emerged in her mind. Could those women have been raped by that Jishin? But by this evil dragon? Damn. Indeed, the nature of a dragon is lewd. But how did a remnant soul do it? Just as Yunchujio was thinking about it, a golden dragon phantom appeared on the huge dragon bone and said lewdly, "The goods delivered today are really not bad. It's actually a heavenly thunder spirit root. This Katie's a little girl, you're lucky. You better obediently let this divine dragon possess you. I won't kill you. I'll seal your spiritual sense. After I find a suitable host, I'll let you out. When that time comes, I'll let you be this divine dragon's concubine. What do you think?" Hearing its words, Yunchujio confirmed the guess in her heart. She said fawningly, "Lord Divine Dragon, I think your suggestion is very good. But before that, can you answer a few of my questions?" The golden dragon was obviously very satisfied with Yunchujio's tactfulness. It said graciously, "What questions?" Yunchujio stretched out her hand and pointed at the clothes that looked like a small mountain. "Whose clothes are those? The national master has taken in many young women. Could it be that he didn't enjoy them but gave them to you?" The golden dragon said indifferently, "Those women were shared by me and him. He enjoyed the bodies of those women while I enjoyed the souls of those women. Those clothes were kept by me as a souvenir. But don't worry. You are different from them. You will be my concubine in the future. I won't kill you." Yunchujio nodded. She looked a little flattered, but then she showed an angry expression. The golden dragon didn't understand and asked curiously, "Little beauty, what happened to you? Who made you angry? Master Dragon God, don't mention it. That Jishin is very detestable. I wanted to sacrifice myself but he kept stopping me. If I hadn't forcefully rushed to the altar, I'm afraid he wouldn't let us meet. I have a guess now. I'm afraid that some good-looking girls have been hidden by him and haven't been offered to you, Yun Chujio said indignantly. Upon hearing this, the golden dragon said angrily, I knew that Ant was not honest, but now that I'm trapped here, I can only use his hand to collect the woman's soul. I can only turn a blind eye. Lord Dragon God, can Jishin come in here? I'm a little scared, Yun Chujio said with a trembling voice. The golden dragon snorted, who does he think he is? Of course he doesn't have the right to come in here and he doesn't even know about the existence of this place. Yun Chujio asked with confusion, Lord Dragon God, if he doesn't know about this place, how can you order him? The golden dragon opened his mouth and was about to say something when he suddenly said angrily, why do you ask so many questions? Why don't you come over and let me possess you? Yun Chujio sighed. Lord Dragon God, you misunderstood me. I was thinking for you. That Jishin deceived you, Lord Dragon God, and he really deserved to die. Moreover, after you possess me you will definitely have to go out. That Jishin is guarding outside. How are you going to go out? So you have to think of a way to kill him first. Only then can you successfully escape after you leave. The golden dragon thought for a moment and felt that what Yun Chujio said made sense. After it possessed, its strength would be very weak for a period of time. Since Jishin had an evil intention towards this little girl, after it got out, it would definitely pester it. Thinking of this, the golden dragon said with some annoyance, now that I'm trapped here, there's no way to kill him unless he walks up to the altar. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and said, Lord Dragon God, I have a good idea. As long as you follow my plan you can definitely kill him. Moreover, after you possess him you can successfully escape. The golden dragon said with some doubt, you really have a plan? Why are you so active? Don't tell me there's some conspiracy? Yun Chujio looked aggrieved. Lord Dragon God, didn't you promise to take me as your concubine in the future? As your concubine, I naturally have to help you. Hearing Yun Chujio's words, the golden dragon's suspicions were somewhat dispelled. Moreover, it felt that Yun Chujio did not have the courage to go against it, a majestic divine beast. Thus, it said in a benevolent manner, speak, what do you have in mind? Yun Chujio said a few words. The golden dragon felt that this method was not bad, so it nodded. It originally did not want to take Yun Chujio out, but Yun Chujio threatened to self-destruct her dantian, so the golden dragon could only agree. After all, the heavenly thunder spirit root was something that could only be found by chance. If this wretched girl was willing to sacrifice herself, it did not know when it would be able to leave this place. The golden dragon began to form seals, and with a flash of white light, the shadows of Yun Chujio and the golden dragon appeared on the altar. Jishin was currently talking to Emperor Nanxian and Prime Minister Sima. Emperor Nanxian and Prime Minister Sima had been waiting outside the divine hall. Jishin saw that Yun Chujio was dead for sure, so he asked someone to call them in. His Majesty Fenghua willingly sacrificed herself to the dragon god. It has already been eaten by the dragon god. You can go back now. Jishin said with a gloomy face. What? Prime Minister Sima almost fainted. In less than an hour His Majesty had died? Besides, His Majesty cherished his life very much. How could he sacrifice himself to the dragon god? It was simply impossible. Prime Minister Sima couldn't care less about fear anymore. He said angrily, State Preceptor Jishin, how could our emperor sacrifice his body to the divine dragon for no reason? Hurry up and hand over our emperor, or else don't blame our East Phoenix Kingdom for being impolite. Emperor Nanxian was also furious. If that little girl was really captured or killed by this Jishin, how could the East Phoenix Kingdom let it go? Their South Dragon Kingdom would be doomed. Jishin looked at the two of them with disdain. His Majesty Fenghua has indeed sacrificed herself to the divine dragon. To say the least, even if my national advisor killed her, what can you do to me? Do you still dare to go against the Li Hen Palace? Emperor Nanxian and Prime Minister Sima were so angry that they gritted their teeth. However, when they thought of the Li Hen Palace behind Jishin, they could not help but be cautious and did not know what to do. When Jishin saw this, his attitude became even more arrogant. I'm just informing you. Your Majesty Nanshan, tomorrow is a good day. Send the 7th princess to me. Emperor Nanshan was so angry that his old face turned red. He was filled with hatred. However, he did not dare to do anything. He almost wanted to bang his head against the wall. At this moment he heard the guards behind him exclaim, "Divine Dragon! The Divine Dragon has appeared." Pand DN0V1 Emperor Nanshan and the other two raised their heads to look at the altar. They saw a majestic golden dragon appear above the altar. However, what surprised them even more was that the person standing beside the golden dragon was actually Yun Chujio. Prime Minister Sima rubbed his eyes and saw that His Majesty was standing next to the golden dragon calmly. He even waved his claws at him. Prime Minister Sima suddenly felt that this was like a dream. What was going on? Could it be that not only was His Majesty liked by the Divine Phoenix, but the Divine Dragon also liked her? Jishin was even more shocked than them. He had been the national advisor for so many years, but he had never seen the phantom of the Divine Dragon. Previously, the orders of the Divine Dragon were just voices. Everyone came back to their senses and quickly knelt on the ground. The golden dragon glanced at the crowd with disdain and his eyes fell on Jishin, who was at the front. Are you the national master, Jishin? Jishin nodded repeatedly. He had given many young girls to the golden dragon who were half dead. Could it be that the golden dragon wanted to reward him? Before the golden dragon could say anything, he heard Yun Chujio say weakly, "Master Divine Dragon, this is a historic moment. Please wait a moment. I will go down and record the process for you with the Shadow Stone." The golden dragon did not object. It was good to keep it as a memento. After all, it was going to have a body soon. Yun Chujio jumped down from the altar and summoned the Shadow Stone that she had bought at a high price. She adjusted her position and nodded at the golden dragon. Only then did the golden dragon say, "Jishin, you go up to the altar. I have something important to announce." Jishin was delighted. Could it be that the dragon god wanted to appoint him as the dragon god's messenger? If that was the case, that would be great. Jishin hurriedly stood up and walked up to the first level of the altar. The golden dragon frowned. Come to the 9th level. Jishin thought for a moment. It was indeed better to go to the 9th level for such a solemn matter, so he climbed up to the 9th level of the altar. Seeing that Jishin was within its control, the golden dragon sneered and said, "Jishin, what crime should you commit? You actually used the name of this divine dragon to make the Southern Dragon Kingdom offer countless innocent girls, and those girls were eventually trampled to death by you. A heartless person like you simply deserves death. Today this divine dragon will execute justice on behalf of the heavens and kill you, this shameless scum." As soon as the golden dragon finished speaking, its huge claws directly smashed Jishin into meat paste. Yun Chujio stretched her neck and shouted, "Lord Dragon God is wise. Lord Dragon God is mighty." Emperor Nanshan and the others reacted and also shouted. Seeing this scene, the golden dragon was very proud. After it successfully possessed in time, it would definitely be stronger than it was now. When that time came, everyone would have to bow down to it. Yun Chujio secretly put away the Shadow Stone. Then she hugged her shoulders and calmly looked at the golden dragon on the altar. After enjoying the cheers of the crowd, the golden dragon finally realized that the little girl with the thunder spirit root had never climbed up the altar again. It looked at Yun Chujio, who was hugging her shoulders and looking at it, and said, "Little girl, come over." Yun Chujio spread out her hands. "Lord Dragon God, the evil has been eliminated. You can go back and rest. I won't disturb you anymore." Golden Dragon. After coming over for a long time, the golden dragon finally came back to its senses. Was it deceived? Damn it, not only was it deceived, but that stinky girl also used it to kill Jishin. She was using it to kill someone else. No, using the dragon to kill someone else. The golden dragon was so angry. If it was a real body, it would probably be so angry that it would vomit blood. But what could it do? Could it be that it was blatantly saying that it wanted to possess someone else? It suppressed its anger and pretended to be kind as it said, "Little girl, this divine dragon likes you very much and wants to make you the divine dragon's emissary. Come up to the altar and this divine dragon will immediately announce this news. Emperor Nanxian and Prime Minister Sima did not understand. They looked at Yun Chujio excitedly, especially Prime Minister Sima. He looked at their emperor with an urging gaze, wishing that their emperor would grow wings and fly to the altar immediately. Unexpectedly, their emperor Fenghua smiled faintly and said, "I'm sorry, I'm already the divine phoenix emissary. I don't want to be the dragon god's emissary anymore. Lord Dragon God, please go back. Moreover, although Jishin is dead, some people still know some things. You have such a wise and mighty image, so you should still cherish it." The golden dragon was so angry that it trembled. This wretched girl was really too hateful. She was threatening it. But what could it do? It had absorbed countless young girls' souls before it could solidify its remnant soul a little. It simply could not maintain its illusory image for too long. Emperor Nanxian was dumbfounded. Why was he listening to the conversation between the dragon god and the little girl? There seemed to be some hidden meaning in their conversation. Just as Emperor Nanxian was pondering, the golden dragon said to him, "Let that little girl ascend the altar. Otherwise, this dragon god will not protect your southern dragon kingdom." Emperor Nanxian was dumbfounded. If the divine beast didn't protect their southern dragon kingdom, wouldn't that force him, the emperor, to step down? What should he do now? Yun Chujio's eyes deepened. She pointed at the golden dragon and scolded, "Don't be so shameless. Do you really want me to tell you about your trivial matter? How great do you think you are? The Southern Dragon Kingdom doesn't have many of you and it doesn't have many of you. So what if you don't protect it? We still have Jing Muan, the Divine Phoenix, the White Tiger and the Black Tortoise. We still need you. If you don't want your reputation to spread far and wide, you'd better get lost now. Otherwise, it'll destroy your reputation. Besides, you've been out for a long time. The heavenly lightning might come soon. After all, you'll be struck by lightning if you do something bad." Boom. Following Yun Chujie's words, a bolt of heavenly lightning struck the golden dragon's shadow. The golden dragon was struck so hard that it trembled. It didn't have the time to argue with Yun Chujio anymore. It disappeared from the altar dejectedly. Pandan 0v1 Emperor Nanxian and the others were scared silly. Damn. Wasn't this female emperor of Fenghua a little too intrepid? She even dared to scold the divine dragon? Most importantly, the dragon god actually disappeared without a trace? What kind of monster was this? Yun Chujio touched her chin and looked at the cloudless sky with a dumbfounded face. Did her jinx skill work again? What was the reason for this? She came back to her senses and saw that the people on the ground were still kneeling. No one got up and looked at her in horror. This guy rolled his eyes and said seriously, "The divine dragon did something bad and was discovered by me, the messenger of the divine phoenix. You also know that the divine beasts control each other, so the divine dragon admitted defeat. I don't want to spread the news about me and the divine dragon. You know what to do, right?" Everyone hurriedly nodded. Not only did they not dare to tell others, even if they used their courage to tell others, others would not believe them, okay? How could a human dare to point at a divine beast and curse? This was simply sensational. Yun Chujio told Emperor Nanxian not to clean up the scene because the people from the Lihan Palace would arrive very soon. She wanted them to see that Jishin had died on the altar so that they could get away with it. After returning to the imperial palace of the Southern Dragon Kingdom, Emperor Nanxian naturally thanked Yun Chujio profusely and his attitude became even more respectful. What a joke. This person even dared to curse the divine dragon. If he was not honest, he would be courting death. Regarding Jishin's matter, I have the shadow stone here. Your Majesty Nanxian can make a few copies. I believe that the Lihan Palace will send someone very soon. You can just hand the shadow stone over to him. There's no need to explain too much. Yun Chujio said indifferently. Emperor Nanxian nodded repeatedly. With the shadow stone, even if the Lihan Palace was dissatisfied, they would not openly make things difficult for them. Emperor Nanxian was silent for a moment, then asked, "Your Majesty Fenghua, I'm still worried about one thing. If the new imperial preceptor sent by the Lihan Palace is the same as Jishin, what should we do?" Yun Chujio curled her lips. "Don't worry. The hateful palace is not that stupid. The people sent this time will definitely be good on the surface. Moreover, after this matter, The two imperial preceptor from the West Wu Kingdom and the North Xian Kingdom will also be much more obedient. Just as Emperor Nan Xian was about to flatter her, the light in the room dimmed. Yun Chujia's heart sank. Fuck, could it be that the heavenly lightning had struck her again? Yun Chujia rushed into the courtyard and saw dark clouds rolling in the sky. Wu Yun's aura was astonishing. Not only was the sky getting darker, but the powerful pressure was suffocating. Emperor Nan Xian followed her out and looked at the sky. Your Majesty Fenghua, is the heavenly lightning here to strike the divine dragon? Isn't the divine dragon already hidden? Why would it attract the heavenly lightning? Yun Chujio glanced at him and said faintly, the heavenly lightning is probably here to strike me. A few days ago I was showing off my love with the Empress, so these single lightning bolts are a little envious and jealous, so they came to strike me. Emperor Nan Xian. Emperor Nan Xian recalled the lightning strike he had experienced before and couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. He asked worriedly, then what should we do now? Don't worry, I won't implicate you. I will leave the city right now and draw the heavenly lightning over. Give me all the flying spiritual artifacts you have. Emperor Nan Xian hurriedly transferred all the flying spiritual artifacts in his storage ring to Yun Chujio. Only then did Yun Chujio ride the giant rabbit out of the imperial palace. Prime Minister Sima, who was waiting outside the imperial palace, saw the dark clouds in the sky and had a premonition that something bad was about to happen. When he saw Empress Jiu, who had been running all the way out, he immediately staggered. It was over. The heavenly lightning was indeed coming for His Majesty. No one else had the ability to cause trouble like His Majesty. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. Yun Chujio waved her hand at Prime Minister Sima. There's no need to follow me. I have my own plans. Prime Minister Sima thought to himself, if I don't follow you, it'll be courting death. Yun Chujio rode on the giant rabbit and galloped all the way out of the capital city of the Southern Dragon Kingdom. Yun Chujio summoned her flying spirit tool and landed in a valley. She took out Xiao Hanyo and Xiao Mogu, and the three perverts sat in a row, waiting to be struck by lightning. This guy had just unlocked the method of resisting the lightning of the flying spirit tool, so he wasn't worried at all. At worst, he would just waste money. It didn't matter, I have plenty of money. When this guy thought of the spirit stones, he immediately thought of that annoying Dehua. Damn it, there was no money. She was probably going to be penniless soon. If she could save it later, she would use it sparingly. After all, this flying spirit tool was quite expensive. Boom, boom, boom. Wu Yun was too lazy to test it out. The first thing he did was to hack it to death. He simply hated the three perverts on the ground to death. It was also a familiar formula and a familiar smell. When the little black bird and Xiao Mogu had almost fully absorbed it, He Xinjiu kept the two and began to absorb it herself. When she was almost at the limit of her absorption, this guy released Dehua. Before she could anger Dehua, Dehua was struck by lightning. Yun Chujio, He Xinjiu tried a few times but failed. She was too lazy to use Dehua. She directly summoned a flying spiritual device and started to walk the dog. Ah, no walking thunder. Wu Yun in the sky was so angry. Chasing closely behind Yun Chujio, He Xinjiu kept changing her flying spiritual device. She didn't know how far she had flown, but she was miserable. She didn't know what kind of boundary she had entered by mistake, but it was actually forbidden to fly there. The flying spiritual device that was burnt black by the lightning fell down like a kite with a broken string. He Xinjiu was dumbfounded. Fuck, was she not struck by lightning? Was she going to fall to her death? Fortunately, this thing had everything in its storage ring. She threw a lot of big gunny sacks filled with sand onto the ground, saving her life. Wu Yun in the sky saw that Yun Chujio could no longer use her flying spirit tool, and immediately trembled arrogantly. Stupid girl, you're dead meat this time. Yun Chujio didn't have a flying spirit tool, so she could only rely on her two legs to walk the lightning. She couldn't run anymore, so she let out the Meng Yanshou. The Meng Yanshou risked its life to hold on for almost an hour. Seeing that it had reached its limit, Yun Chujio had no choice but to put it away and carry it on her own. As time passed, He Xinjiu felt that the meridians in her body were about to explode. She thought to herself, was it going to die just like that? It was too fucking depressing. She thought about it and summoned Dehua. This time she learned from the previous lesson and protected Dehua with her own body. Then she started to get angry. Dehua, it's not that I don't like you. You are even weaker than the most useless little bastard. What's the use of a spiritual beast like you? PN0V1 calm the little bastard that was innocent in the spiritual beast bag. If it were not for the urgent situation, it would have complained about it. It was not that it was useless. It was still a cub. Moreover, its big bastard shell had made many contributions. Dehua, you are a walking waste. You are a disgrace to the fierce beast world. If I were you, I would find a piece of tofu and kill myself. Yun Chujio scolded for a long time, but Dehua acted as if it did not hear her. There was still no sign of darkening. Yun Chujio could only continue to curse. Dehua, it's not that my words are harsh, but with your current state, you will definitely be alone in the future. Which young lady would fall for a good-for-nothing who is not good-looking and useless? The purple color on Dehua's body instantly turned black, and her figure began to rapidly grow. Yun Chujio was dumbfounded. She seemed to have unsealed the new skill that made Dehua go berserk. Wu Yun looked at the blackened Dehua with a dumbfounded expression. What the hell is this? Wasn't it a purple pig? How did it turn black and grow a pair of wings? A pig can fly into the sky? Who cares what the hell it is? Let's just chop it up first. Several bolts of lightning struck towards Dehua. Wu Yun was stunned to discover that the damned pig actually opened its mouth and ate the lightning. It ate. Wu Yun was so shocked that she even forgot to strike the lightning. What the fuck? What was going on? Yun Chujio was meditating with her eyes closed. When she realized that the lightning had stopped striking, she could not help but open her eyes and look curiously. When she saw that everything was normal, she did not have time to think too much and continued meditating. After a full 15 minutes, Wu Yun finally regained her senses. What the fuck? She had seen a ghost in broad daylight. It must have been a coincidence. Boom, boom, boom. Wu Yun struck several lightning bolts at Dehua again, and they were all eaten by Dehua. Moreover, it seemed that Dehua still wanted more. Wu Yun was so angry. Logically speaking, shouldn't spiritual beasts dissipate after a while? Why didn't this damn pig dissipate? Perhaps Wu Yun's resentment had taken effect, and Dehua finally dissipated. Wu Yun vented his anger and started to attack Hei Xinjiu. Hei Xinjiu quickly released Dehua again. This time this guy had experience. He directly poked Dehua's sore spot. You stupid foodie. Someone like you can only be a bachelor for the rest of your life. As soon as Yun Chujio finished speaking, Dehua's body turned black and his body started to grow rapidly. When Yun Chujio saw that Dehua had completely turned black, she was very proud of herself. He felt that she was awesome. When she saw that Dehua had eaten several bolts of lightning, she could not help but feel a little dumbfounded. This foodie even ate lightning? However, it was also true. Lightning was the source of lightning's spiritual power, and this was the same reason as eating spirit stones. As Yun Chujio thought about it, her eyes lit up. Since Dehua could eat lightning, wouldn't she save a lot of spiritual stones? Therefore, this fellow stretched his neck and shouted, Dehua, eat more. Anyway, there's a fool who will provide you with such delicious food for free. It's a waste not to eat it. Pingyinwan Wu Yun in the sky was so angry that he almost fainted. You're the fool. Your whole family is a fool. Therefore, Hei Xinjiu began to repeatedly release Dehua and anger Dehua. In the end, this fellow was too lazy to say anything more. Just saying 5 words could anger Dehua, a 10,000-year-old single pig. Hei Xinjiu let Dehua eat the heavenly thunder while running forward. This fellow knew very well that every time Dehua was released, it would consume a lot of her spiritual power. Therefore, she had to leave this place as soon as possible. After that, she could use her flying spiritual device to resist the heavenly thunder. However, this fellow ran in the direction she came in for quite a while, but she still did not leave this no-fly zone. What the heck? Could it be that there was an array formation or a barrier here? Her heart sank as she thought of a possibility. This place might be a barrier and she could not enter normally. The flying spirit tool that the lightning struck her previously might have unintentionally opened the barrier, so she had mistakenly entered this place. This fellow's heart was like a beeping dog. Fuck, since she could not get out, she could only walk in. Perhaps she could find a place to avoid the lightning. Thus Hei Xinjiu ran in the opposite direction. Yun Chujio ran and discovered that more and more red plants were appearing on the ground. Some of them she had read about in ancient books, while others she had never seen before. Yun Chujio looked at the plants that she couldn't recognize and felt that her previous guess was right. There must be a barrier here isolated from the world. Otherwise, no one would pick these high-level spirit herbs. In the distance, there were still lingering clouds and mist. She could vaguely see a towering mountain peak, but the shape of the mountain peak was a little strange. It looked like a candle. Yun Chujio did not have the time to gossip about the shape of the mountain peak. She was anxious to find a place where she could temporarily hide from the heavenly lightning. Even a cave would be good. While Hei Shinjio was thinking, she finally saw a deep cave entrance in the distance. Hard work pays off. This cave looks very solid. I should be able to hide for a while. Wu Yun rolled and crawled into the cave. Although the heavenly lightning struck by Wu Yun was a little crooked, its power was greatly reduced. It did not pose much of a hindrance to Hei Shinjio. Wu Yun was shivering in anger. He started hacking at the mountain without caring about anything else. But he would crush this scourge to death in the cave if he had to. Unfortunately, the mountain was abnormally strong. Wu Yun had been hacking at it for a long time, but he only managed to chop off some broken stones. Wu Yun had no choice but to give up for the time being. He did not believe that the wretched girl would hide in the cave and not come out. In the cave, Hei Shinjio was meditating and adjusting her breath when a huge suction force suddenly came over. This fellow was bitterly sucked into the depths of the cave. Because the change happened in an instant, Hei Shinjio did not have time to react. By the time she reacted, she was already locked in a cage. TSK, it's actually a little girl with a heavenly thunder spirit root. It's really my good fortune. A man's shadow said with a strange laugh. Yun Chujio's heart felt like it was bickering with a dog. Damn it, she had just left the wolf's den and entered the tiger's den. She was really unlucky. Yun Chujio looked at the man in front of her and her heart skipped a beat. The mountain peak she saw before was like a candle, and the person in front of her was obviously a demon. Could it be the Ingemo that Succubus mentioned? Back then she had tricked the succubus into revealing the hiding places of a few demons, and one of them was Ingemo. He said that Ingemo was hiding in the Jutian Valley, so this should be the Jutian Valley. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. You are Senior Ingemo? Ingemo was stunned. How did you know my name? Yun Chujio squeezed out 2 crocodile tears. Senior Ingemo. I finally found you. I am the disciple of Senior Succubus. I am here to find you. Ingemo was dumbfounded. Succubus disciple. Yes, my master was trapped in the Sea of Flames on the Immortal Essence continent. He couldn't get out. He told me where my seniors were trapped and asked me to save all of you so that we could conspire together, Yun Chujio said sincerely. This guy found out that this cage was made of 10,000-year-old black iron to isolate spiritual power. Moreover, she was afraid that the kitchen knife would be struck by lightning. Previously she kept it in her storage ring. Now she could only rely on her mouth to bluff. As long as she got out of the cage it would be easy. Ingemo stared at Yun Chujio for a few times. Conspiracy? What kind of conspiracy? Of course, it's to gather all of our forces to either conquer a continent or return to our homeland, Yun Chujio said with a yearning look. When Ingemo heard Yun Chujio's words he became a little more convinced. After all, the demons had their own sphere of influence. Stupid humans did not know that. Although what you said makes sense, why would Succubus take you as her disciple? Yun Chujio's face showed some pride. Because I'm good-looking, I'm devastatingly good-looking. Ingemo heard Yun Chujio's reply and nodded. Succubus, that useless person, indeed likes beautiful women. However, why would a human like you be willing to help us demons? Yun Chujio pointed at the top of her head. You heard it too, right? The heavenly lightning outside struck me. I have the heavenly lightning spirit root that the heavenly Tao does not tolerate. Even the humans ostracize me. I despise hypocritical humans the most. I think the demon race is better, so I submitted to my master and volunteered to save the seniors. Hearing Yun Chujio's words, Ingemo believed her 90%. However, his tone was a little disdainful as he said, How can a little ant like you save us? Lord Ingemo, you're looking down on me by saying this. Although my spiritual power is weak, my brain is good. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to see my master in the sea of flames, right? Lai Yan's voice was filled with disdain. I used to trick those flame seals to bring me in. Tell me how you can leave this place. I will think of a way for you, Yun Chujio said unwillingly. Pandian 0ve1 cm, this Jutian peak is the core of the array formation. Unless the peak is flattened, I have no way to leave this cave. Therefore you have no way to let me leave this place. If that's the case, I might as well eat you to replenish my spirit energy, Ingemo said with a sinister smile. Senior Ingemo, we are all one family. Is it really good to kill each other? Yun Chujio said weakly. Humph. We demons are not as hypocritical as you humans. We are the most pragmatic. If you can save me, then we are naturally one family. However, you have no way to save me now, so why should I keep you? Ingemo said matter-of-factly. Senior Ingemo, who says I have no way to save you? I have a way to save you. The piece of Wu Yun outside hates me to the bone. If I climb to the peak, it will definitely chase after me and chop me down. It won't take long to flatten the peak, Yun Chujio said confidently. Ingemo felt that this method was feasible, but this little girl couldn't be thinking of taking the opportunity to escape, right? Your words are nice, but if I let you go, what would you do if you took the opportunity to escape? Ingemo stared at Yun Chujio and asked. Yun Chujio spread out her hands. Lord Ingemo, you also know that I can only withstand the heavenly thunder for a while. When I can't withstand it, I would have to return to the cave to hide. Where else could I run to? Moreover, the human race can no longer tolerate me. If I don't submit to the demon race, what else can I do? How about this? If you have poison or something to make me swallow it, if I don't keep my promise, you won't give me the antidote. Clearly, Yun Chujio's last words moved Ingemo. He took out a pill and threw it to Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio swallowed it without hesitation. Ingemo said coldly, the pill you just swallowed can only be undone by me. If you dare to lie to me, Yun Chujio said obediently, don't worry. Even if it's for my life, I won't betray you. Ingemo felt that it was foolproof, so he opened the cage made of 10,000-year-old black iron and let Hei Shinjio out. The first thing Hei Shinjio did when she came out was to hold the kitchen knife in her hand. Ingemo asked in puzzlement, what are you doing with the kitchen knife? Is it to climb to the peak? Yun Chujio said with a smile, Senior Ingemo, come here. I'll tell you a big secret about this kitchen knife. Ingemo took a few steps forward and asked curiously, what secret? Yun Chujio smiled sweetly at him and raised the kitchen knife in her hand to chop at him. The secret to let you die. Ingemo was really shocked, but he did not take it to heart. What could a stinky girl with such weak spiritual power do to him? It was simply courting death. Therefore Ingemo was very careless. He didn't dodge Yun Chujio's big kitchen knife at all. Instead he stretched out his hand to grab Yun Chujio. Ah! Ingemo was hit by the big kitchen knife and let out a shrill scream. Ingemo looked at the big kitchen knife in Yun Chujio's hand in disbelief. Divine weapon? Impossible. How could this be a divine weapon? Yun Chujio did not care whether he believed it or not. She struck a few more bolts of lightning that contained small flames at him. Ingmo's attention was on Yun Chujio's large kitchen knife, so he did not pay too much attention to Yun Chujio's lightning until he was hit by the small flames hidden within. He let out a shrill scream again. 10,000-year-old fire marrow? How could you have 10,000-year-old fire marrow? Ingemo was so regretful that his intestines were turning green. If he had known this would happen, he would not have let this stinky girl out. However, wait, he still had a trump card. Stinky girl, if you kill me, you can forget about getting the antidote. I will definitely destroy the antidote before I die. Ingemo said viciously. Yun Chujio's smile became even sweeter. Idiot, I have always eaten poison like candy. You want to poison me with that lousy poison? Dream on. Ingemo was furious. It turned out that all of this was planned by this stupid girl. Humans were indeed treacherous. Although Yun Chujio's spiritual power was weak, whether it was the large kitchen knife or the small flame, they were all the nemesis of the demon race. Therefore Ingemo did not dare to get close to Yun Chujio. Instead he was forced to retreat by Yun Chujio. Ingemo changed his tone and said, Little girl, we have nothing to worry about in the distant days and have no enmity with each other in the near future. Why do you have to force me? Leave this cave immediately and I will pretend that nothing happened. Yun Chujio curled her lips. Cut the fucking nonsense. I still want to occupy your cave and use it to avoid the heavenly thunder. How can I not kill you? Ingemo, this stupid girl was 10,000 times more shameless than the demons. Damn it. Due to the large difference in spiritual power, Yun Chujio was busy for a long time and could not attack Ingemo again. This guy could only release Dehua. 10,000-year-old single pig attack. Kill him. When Dehua heard the words 10,000-year-old single pig, it was as if he was injected with chicken blood and instantly turned black. Ingemo was dumbfounded. What the hell was this? There was such a spiritual beast? Dehua ferociously bit at Ingemo. Its heart was filled with anger and all of its anger was directed at Ingemo. Ingemo naturally would not sit still and wait for death. It fought with Dehua. Yun Chujio knew that Dehua was not Ingmo's opponent. She magnified Dehua in order to distract Ingmo's attention so that she could succeed in her sneak attack. Hei Shinjio sneaked behind Ingemo with a large kitchen knife and slashed at him. Ingemo screamed in pain and his figure became much fainter. Then he disappeared. Yun Chujio was stunned. Where did he go? Did he die from her slash? It shouldn't be. Yun Chujio searched the cave but did not find anything strange. Ingemo seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Pandian 0ve1 cm Yun Chujio rubbed her chin and pondered. She had to find Ingemo, otherwise when she went out and was half dead from the heavenly lightning, she might fall into his trap again when she came in. However, where was this damn Ingemo hiding? Yun Chujio's eyes lit up as she thought about it. She remembered that the succubus had once said that Ingemo could hide in a human's shadow. She looked at the shadow beside her. It would be best if she could make him lower his guard before she could hit him with a single strike. Yun Chujio thought of this and snorted coldly. She muttered to herself, I reckon that Ingemo is already dead. Forget it, let's go out and withstand the heavenly lightning for a while. Then we can come back in. Yun Chujio walked out of the cave as she spoke. Ingemo, who was hiding in her shadow, was delighted. As long as this wretched girl came out of the cave, she could forget about coming back in. Moreover, if she was half dead from being struck by the heavenly lightning, he could take the opportunity to capture her again and kill her directly. Just as Yun Chujio was about to walk out of the cave, she suddenly raised her large kitchen knife and slashed at her own shadow. Not only that, a small flame jumped out from her palm and burned the shadow on the ground. Ingemo let out a shrill scream and drifted out from Yun Chujio's shadow. Unwillingly, he turned into nothingness. Patter. A storage ring fell from the ground. Hei Shinjio picked up the storage ring, refined it, and sent her spiritual sense into it. Seeing the few things inside, she couldn't help but twitch her lips. This Ingemo was really poor. Other than some medicinal pills and sundries, there wasn't a single spirit stone inside. Only the cage made of 10,000-year-old black iron was not bad. Little did she know that Ingemo was trapped here, and the spirit tool and demonic tool in his hand were all absorbed by him. Guai Chao was quite happy, clamoring to eat those pills. Looking at Guai Chao's excited look, Yun Chujio knew that those pills were most likely highly toxic. She also picked one and fed it to Guai Chao and asked it to sort out the prescription and antidote. Guai Chao was holding its breath. She had to hand in her homework after eating some pills. If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have fucking eaten it. Although the Guai Chao was holding its breath, it still followed Yun Chujio's instructions. After communicating with the Guai Chao for a long time, Yun Chujio finally came to a conclusion. Most of the pills were refined from the red spiritual plants outside. Yun Chujio immediately decided that when she went out later, she would definitely pick more red spiritual plants outside. Since these spiritual plants could be used to refine pills, they should be able to be sold for money. Now that she was raising a bottomless pit, she had to open up the source and economize. Yun Chujio sat down cross-legged and released the Mengyensho to stand guard at the side. Only then did she begin to comb through the violent lightning spiritual power in her body. This fellow felt that it was about time, so he strolled out of the cave and then climbed up the peak with a clattering sound. The dark clouds in the sky had been keeping watch. When they saw Yun Chujio coming out, they naturally would not let her go. Hei Shinju was very miserable. She had to climb to the top of the peak and use Wu Yun's hand to flatten the peak. Otherwise she would not be able to get out. Therefore she could only suffer the lightning and climb to the top of the peak with all her might. Fortunately, she had been recuperating in the cave for a long time, so she could hold on for a while. Wu Yun in the sky was very puzzled. Was this smelly girl's brain not working properly? Why did she have to climb to the peak instead of staying in the cave? Wu Yun did not have time to think about anything else. Right now he only had one thought, and that was to kill this scourge. He Xingjiu kept climbing up. The mountain peak was like a candle. The higher she went, the thinner and steeper it became. If He Xingjiu didn't have the help of the sticky silk, she wouldn't have been able to continue climbing. She had spent a lot of effort and finally reached the peak. She found a place to rest but didn't continue climbing. Wu Yun's strikes were not always accurate. She should be able to attract Wu Yun to flatten the peak. Hey, that little Kai Yun in the sky, do you know why little sister is climbing up? Yun Chujiu shouted at Wu Yun in the sky. Little Kai Yun? Little sister? Wu Yun was so angry that it was trembling. How would it know why she climbed up? It was most likely because her brain was not working properly. Yun Chujiu continued with a smile. The reason why I climbed up is to be closer to you. I want to lower the difficulty for an idiot like you. Little sister, you are very kind, right? You don't have to thank me too much. Wu Yun was so angry that she was about to faint. He couldn't take it anymore. This stupid girl was really too angry. Rumble. 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 Wu Yun didn't care about anything else and continued to strike fiercely. Although most of the lightning struck Yun Chujiu's body, there were still quite a number of lightning strikes that struck the peak. When Yun Chujiu saw this, her heart was filled with joy. It was rare to see someone as smart as her in this world. How could she be so smart? The few animals in the spiritual beast bag were speechless. At this time, this black-hearted master was still narcissistic. This degree of narcissism was really unparalleled. When Yun Chujiu could not resist it, she released De Hua to help her resist it. After repeating this, the peak of the mountain was finally flattened. Yun Chujiu took out the chopping board and tried it. Sure enough, it could fly. This guy sat on the chopping board and landed on the ground. The chopping board was not as abnormal as Yun Chujiu. If Yun Chujiu did not protect it with her body, its weapon spirit, the little silver dragon, would have been struck to death by the heavenly thunder long ago. Therefore, once Yun Chujiu landed on the ground, she put away the chopping board. Then she said to Wu Yun in the sky with a smile, "Little fool, thank you for helping me to remove the enchantment here. You are really a good Yun who helps others. If it weren't for you, I would really be worried to death. I don't have your stupid strength. I could even flatten the top of the mountain. Thank you." Wu Yun finally understood why Yun Chujiu wanted to climb to the top of the mountain. It turned out that she used it to flatten the mountain peak and open the enchantment. Wu Yun was so angry that she was trembling. This stupid girl was too damn cunning. She was simply not human. The more Wu Yun thought about it, the angrier she got. She hacked even harder, wishing that she could chop He Xingjiu into pieces. When He Xingjiu could not take it anymore, she slithered into the cave and said slyly, "Little fool, I'll play with you after dinner." Wu Yun, Wu, she bullied Yun too much. Wu, she could not live anymore. Yun Chujiu rested enough and came out to tease the dark clouds in the sky again. When she couldn't take it anymore, she hid in the cave to avoid the storm. She did it again and again until the next morning. Wu Yun had used up all of his thunder spiritual power, so he could only float away shivering. He Xingjiu even waved her claws and shouted, "Little fool, next time when you come, bring more thunder energy. My De Hua is not full yet." Wu Yun was so angry that he had nothing left to live for. He was crying as he floated. Wherever he went, heavy rain would fall. Those were his bitter tears. Yun Chujiu curled her lips and released the 5 puppets to help her pick red herbs crazily. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.